Randy's not here tonight, but we're going to turn it over to David and Greg.
Very good, sir. Make sure everybody gets in. This workshop is the third and final scheduled workshop in the development of the FY 2013-14 budget. This workshop is intended to provide the board with an update on the changes made to the tentative budget and the 5-year plan subsequent to the delivery of said budget to the commissioners on July 15th, 2013, and provide an opportunity to address any issues, new issues, or proposed changes desired by the board. What I'm going to do is go through the changes since you guys saw the budget last. Go through those changes, then we're going to have a presentation by Bruce Ashley on the COPS grant, and then we're going to go into discussion with you guys and answer your questions and kind of take it from there. So let me real quick run down through the changes that have been made.
Bottom of page 2 on your agenda.
Yep, bottom of page 2 on your agenda item. These are changes that were made both to the tentative budget and the 5-year plan. As you know, we're managing based on not only the current year, but we're managing based upon a 5-year projection because we can't just look at 1 year. We have to look forward, and so therefore that's the purpose of this. In the general fund, ad valorem's increased by $31,775, and that was due to a calculation error that was found. State mandated Medicaid expenses decreased by $228. The reserve account was increased to $32,000, increased by $32,003 as a result of 1 and 2. Fuel contamination cost estimates changed, resulting in an increase in cost of $68,325 for FY 13-14, $300,000 decrease in FY 14-15 and 15-16 for an overall decrease of $231,765 over the 3-year period. Cash forward increased by $68,325 as a result of the fuel cleanup increase, but required cash forward in 14 and 15, 15-16 decreased by $300,000. Interfund transfers out were adjusted in the 5-year plan to balance the net transfers in and out. The net result was a decrease of $12,456 over 5 years. The fine and forfeiture fund, ad valorem taxes increased by $15,343 due to that same calculation problem. The transfer to the sheriff was decreased in 13-14 by $150,000 and an additional $150,000 in 14-15 to correct the deficit fund balance found in the fund. Cash forward was subsequently decreased from $300,000 to $134,657 as a result of 1 and 2. Court fund was small adjustments. I'll skip into the road fund. Scott said, okay. And mainly in the road funds was transfers in and transferred out, the small things. So we'll go on to the fire and MSBU. Interfund transfers in the general fund were increased in FY 18 and 19 by $20,000. That was left out in the budget. Also, contracted services in FY 13-14 were increased by $11,000 as a result of the Division of Forestry annual assessment not being budgeted for. Cash forward was increased by $11,000 to balance the 2013-14 budget.
Now, where are you, David?
I'm on page, what page is this? Page 4. TDC fund. As a result of the board's vote on July 15 regarding the 3 contract positions, the TDC contracted services have been reduced in FY 13-14 in each of the subsequent 5 years in the 5-year plan. The decrease in 13-14 was $10,314, and the total 5-year plan decrease was $54,753 for an average reduction of $10,951 per year. Cash forward was decreased by $10,315. Advertising expense was decreased in each of the 5 years in the 5-year plan to correct the deficit fund balance. In the fund, the total reduction was $12,517 for an average of $2,503 per year. Capital fund projects. As a result of the board's approval of the USDA and NRCS mitigation grant, the interfund transfers increased $297,500. NRCS grant revenue increased by $981,750, and NRC grant expense increased by $1,279,250. 1 cent sales tax road fund, as a result of the NRCS grant, interfund transfers out increased $297,500 for the grant match. Sidewalk funding was removed and decreased by $150,000. Road restriping was decreased by $75,000. New road paving was decreased by $75,980. New road paving in FY 16, 17, 18, and 19 was decreased by $245,000 to correct the deficit fund balance in the fund. The reserve account was increased in FY 13-14 by $3,480. This was one of the areas that if you were to, as I was saying earlier, if you were to, in every one of these funds, if you look at the 1 year, you're making a big mistake if you're just looking at the next year. You got to look at it how it rolls out over 5 years, and it's amazing. It'll look good in this year, but then you're in the ditch in the 4th and 5th year. So you can no longer. It doesn't make sense just to look at the budget this year. We got to look at it and then how that affects the out years. Solid waste fund contracted services was increased in each of the 5 years in the 5-year plan to account for an estimated increase in the Waste Pro contract. The net increase over 5 years is $146,872, and an average for an average increase of $29,375 over 1% for each year. So with that's the changes. Do y'all have any questions about those changes before we get going on the?
I probably have a question on page 2 through page 6.
Okay.
Basically, I understand what you did going over it quickly. You had on the general, let's see, number 3, page 3. On the general fund, you got your ad valorem taxes and so forth. Your fuel contamination cost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it decreases by $231. What is our overall cost?
Originally, our cost projection was $600,000. We got a revised budget on that and we also were able to get state equipment to do the majority of it, so that overall budget now is $368. I'm sorry, $368.
And that money comes out of our general fund?
That money comes out of our reserves.
Out of our reserves?
Yes. We're bringing that cash forward.
At some point in time, I'd like to see, maybe not at this meeting, I'd like to see what our unexpected cost has been hit in our reserve. You know, just like this is sort of like an unexpected cost. I'd like to see the total of what those things that we were not thinking about 6 months, 8 months ago, I'd like to see what that total cost is, because it's substantial.
Every year is substantial. That's right.
It's been, well, you take a hit right here, $368,000.
When you add that to the FRS of $100 and something thousand, that's a big hit for us to absorb. And plus the other unfunded mandates.
I see on the 1 cent road side.
I have a question on that
Okay.
point.
Mm-hmm.
That originally it was budgeted for $600,000,
Mm-hmm.
so that was there as a bill for us to pay estimate.
Over a 3-year period.
And now that's been decreased by $368,000.
By 200 and something thousand. The bill is 368,000.
Okay, so 200. So actually, that moved in our favor there.
That moved in our favor, but it affected the out years, not
Okay.
not this year or next year.
Now, and if I could add something, what we have just gone over is the changes that we knew about between when we delivered the budget to you on 7/15 and tonight, okay? So you have a new document that's dated August 8th. And we just went over the changes that occurred between when we first gave it to you on July 15th and August 8th.
Gotcha.
Okay, and that did move in our favor. Well, now we have a folder full of changes that you don't even have, that we still need to go over, and we just spent the money we just saved.
Gotcha.
So,
That was the question I had.
right, and we've got to go over those subsequent changes
We'll go over that.
that still need to be made, that your budget
It's
document.
it's
doesn't-
still related to the sheriff's office, but it's the roof is what we're talking about, the sheriff's
Printed
office.
a whole new budget yet?
What you have is the official latest version. This folder here has not made it into the spreadsheet yet that you're looking at.
Does this budget reflect these changes? That's what I think, that's what
In
I'm,
the agenda item, yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Your sidewalk funding was removed or decreased. Was it removed or was it decreased?
It was removed.
And the total decrease was 150, yes.
So it was removed.
And realize the Crawfordville sidewalk up here is in the CRTPA 5-year plan to be funded next year.
How about?
And the Panacea still hasn't, it's on the radar screen, but it hasn't hit their funding yet. So I'm hoping it'll be the following year.
Now, I see the solid waste fund.
Yes, sir.
Explain that one to me.
That's our garbage fund, solid waste fund. And basically what that is, that's a projection out over the next 5 years. We've got to project an estimated increase for the Waste Pro contract, realizing that they just can't sustain the same level. So we're projecting in there so that we can be on the safe side, a 1% increase of $29,375 of their contract each year. That way, if it doesn't happen, what we're hoping is as the economy improves, more houses come on board, that'll take care of that increase. But for safety's sake, we need to build that in.
so in a way, it's kind of like highballing it each year.
Well, you're highballing it to a degree, but not bad, just 1%, just to take care of it, just in case, because we got to anticipate that if the economy slows, their cost increase, they'll come back and ask for an increase from us.
If they don't have a fuel increase, generally speaking, this will,
And they have the right in their contract for a fuel increase.
but if they don't have, we'll pretty much, this will be,
That's pretty much, we won't have to do that, that's right. We've got increases in here, but that's population increase, new customer increases, but this would be if they wanted to add their fuel increase, this would take care of
Now,
that.
they still have to come to the board to get all of those increases.
Right.
What I ask,
Like we approved
I
of.
want to ask about that too. I remember whenever, of course I wasn't on the board at the time, but I remember whenever the contract was being discussed, it was mentioned that possibly at the 2-year mark of each contract or whatever, they would be able to analyze their fuel.
Right, and they missed the window this year, so I got a feeling next year they're gonna be analyzing that, but they missed their window this year.
Okay, because I was expecting them to do that.
Yeah, in fact, they asked Cleve if they could go ahead and throw it in, and they'd already missed a contract date, so. So I would anticipate there'll be some type of increase next year. But it's according to the amount of that increase, whether it would affect what we're charging our, what the customers or citizens are being charged, because that's the reason we'll run this fund balance out and see based on that. And the increase, we may be able to cover it with the increased citizens, you know what I mean? So we'll just have to run it out and see when that happens, what it affects.
Randy, if you could go to the Fund 440, we can look at maybe you have this, it's on page, if you're looking at the hard document,
Just want to ask another question about that. Say in the event that they did increase it due to the fuel shortage, would that then increase what a homeowner pays every year? Like, would the 196 go up?
It would be based on what percentage they would want to increase. If it's a small increase, probably not. If it's a large increase, yes, there's a possibility of that, but as you'll see, this fund, at the end of this year, this fund will be somewhat healthy, and then at the end of next year, this fund will be healthy. So therefore, if it is a large increase, in theory, we could, according to what that is, we could string it out for a couple of years before, or do some small incremental increases in there. But I would be willing to bet that if they do ask for an increase, hopefully the increase in, hopefully housing is continuing, it looks like it's continuing to increase. That increase will outpace their little increase, and we'll be able to keep our margins and be okay.
When you say the housing increase, you're talking about just the number of people that
New citizens that come into the county that are what you would call new customers.
Yeah. Now, they are probably restricted to a certain percentage on any renewal.
I'm pretty sure there is a restriction on that, on the contract.
I don't remember.
I can't remember. I'm sure there is. Yeah.
I hate to think that there was.
And, the fuel has went up.
It has to be approved by you all.
And it has to be approved by you guys. So, but I think in this fund is getting healthy. And if we get through this year where we're at, we'll have the landfill capped, we'll have all the monitoring done. It'll be sitting in a good position, to move forward and be a very secure fund.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
I see my good Mr. Fireman over there. He's sitting at attention and so forth. How about his expenses? Where is he on this?
Do you want to talk about the fire or EMS?
Are they tied together so much, or are they?
Well, no, one is an MSBU fund, which is the fire, and the EMS is in the general fund.
Well, run me by the MSBU.
The MSBU? Okay, Fund 180. Let me pull it up here pull it up there, please, Brandy, excuse me, Brittany.
This is page 255, if you're looking at the 5-year plan.
Yeah, he can tell me everything I need to know. I don't have to look at the numbers.
All right, yeah. Basically, the revenue that we've budgeted for is $1 million from the MSBU fund is $1,036,000, and that's actually 96% of the total that would be collected. That's because of discounts, etc. We'll be carrying forward $211,000 in cash forward to take care of the spending that'll go on. Some of the highlights are we had to increase it due to $11,000 for the forestry assessment, which is something that we're going to continue to fight. This is one of those unfunded mandates that doesn't make any sense. This is where we're having to pay the state. We're having to pay the state forestry service for fire service to fire protection on their land.
There's some conversation that you shouldn't even be having that tax on anyway.
Well, yeah, we're paying, they're not paying us for fire service, we're paying them for our fire service. So that's one of those that we're gonna, this year in our legislative, we gotta hit that pretty hard, even though it's $11,000, it's insane.
Basically, is the budget staying the same? That budget is staying the same?
Yep, there's no increase asked for, or anything like that, for the MSBU fund. We don't anticipate an increase until, according to how everything goes, there'll be an increase in, 16-17. There could be up to a 6% increase in year 16-17, according to how it goes. But like I say, this is affected by economics. If the pace of development and build out in the county is faster, that could be pushed out and/or eliminated altogether.
What have you done to make that department more efficient?
Fire and MSBU, we've done a whole bunch of things. We've improved the maintenance. We've improved the equipment. We're buying new equipment now. We no longer have to work on as many old stuff. We've reduced our maintenance costs dramatically.
Overtime. How about overtime?
Overtime,
Overtime.
Overtime, oh, no, overtime wasn't as big a...
I'm not talking about overtime.
Overtime, this is where we created the flex or the positions that are fire and EMS dual certification, so therefore,
And that's working for you.
that's working perfectly. We've actually saved the county.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'll have to get that number to you, but it's significant savings this year. And,
Your fire chief's still happy.
fire chief is still happy, but we have saved it. It's kept us from bringing on employees. It's kept us from running up our overtime. So realize overtime in both of these are significant because it's built in due to the shifts.
How about our collections from the...
Fire and EMS collections, let me give you an idea of how well we are doing there. That's one of those things, what's measured gets done. We've begun measuring it. We put things in to take care of that. We were collecting at about the same customer base, 690,221. And this year we're on a pace to collect almost $900,000. We've improved our collections, and that's not necessarily ticks up in it, it's just improving our collections from insurance companies, from individuals, from Medicare and Medicaid, or Medicaid, whichever one that
Do you
is.
have a percentage of what you're recovering? Do you know what your percentage of...
We're bumping 70%, which is pretty darn good, because realize there's a 25% that you're not gonna collect. Every time that ambulance leaves out and goes to a Medicaid call, we're losing about $200 every time that we won't collect.
You could say, you're trying to say that that's probably 25%?
Yeah.
So we're at 70, so we're losing...
We've improved it. We were at about 45 and now we're about 70. We're about as good as we're gonna get.
Well, if you're up to where you're receiving 70 of a possible 75, that's pretty good. That's about if you run it the other way, it may be a 90%.
Yeah, we'd be about 95% the other way if we were getting, but realize every time that ambulance leaves that office and it's a Medicaid call, it's losing money.
Can you tell me anything wrong with fire department? I'm just kidding.
No, I think the chief has done a good job. We're running very efficient. We've become much more efficient. We've improved our maintenance. The biggest thing is we've got a process now to change out our equipment, because the world's worst thing is in an attempt to save money, we wouldn't buy new equipment. So all you do is you just transfer it from buying new equipment, you just start spending more money on it. We were spending, like in Public Works, we were spending more money every month. If we'd have went out and bought a truck and paid for it per month, we'd have been cheaper for what we're spending in maintenance costs. So those are things we have to realize and say, that doesn't make sense, let's get something new. And that's what we're trying to come out of. We're trying to reestablish our fleets to where we can be more efficient. You can't be efficient if you've got a truck sitting in the garage and you're spending, it's 10 years old and you're spending $30,000 on it, or not that much, $3,000 on it. So.
I got a couple of specific fire questions. You got a couple line items for maintenance and repair, 136,000 and 200,000. What are those for?
Let's see.
200,000 is Station 8 repairs.
That's Station 8 here in Crawfordville. That's putting a new roof on Station 8 and making electrical upgrades, and also bathroom upgrades to make them handicapped. Currently, we can't, that's the most active volunteer station that we have in Crawfordville, and they can't be housed there. So this will house them there. It'll bring their facility back up to snuff.
What other stations do we need to do repairs on? You got Panacea that's been...
We got Panacea, in fact, we've got a little bit more to do to Panacea. Station 8 is the next biggest one.
Is that the Crawfordville one?
That's the Crawfordville one. And after that, there's some minor stuff, but this will take care of some of the major problems. And the next one will be naturally building a fire station for the permanent service.
What about the 136,000?
That's generic, that's that's truck maintenance. I just hit something on my tab here. Yeah, that it covers also, that maintenance is not only just the maintenance for the fire trucks, but that's also some building maintenance, etc. Of course, you've separated some of that out, but we've stuck over. Yeah, Station 5, I'm sorry, is another one we gotta fix. I'm sorry. But that 136 is primarily the maintenance on the fire trucks. Realize how many fire trucks we have, Chief?
We have 30, and still 70% of our fleet is 15 to 18 years
Right.
old.
We have 30 fire trucks, and we routinely maintain those, we have to pay there's a guy that comes around that has a special license to operate, to maintain those, and we have a contract with him to do that, and that's the run rate. We've got that settled down. We were spending quite a bit on that, but we've got a good program now, and he's maintaining our fleet, and we've looked every way we can to skin that cat, and a lot of that is just in part in materials. We monitor that on a regular basis, by the way.
You've got two interfund transfers for $14,000 and $40,000. What are those?
The transfer in, the 14,000 up above is cash coming into this fund.
What fund is it coming from?
It's coming from the general fund for your indigency, those that are deemed indigent and get a waiver for the MSBU. We can't waive it, we have to pay for it from the general fund.
Gotcha.
So 14,000 is coming into this fund from the general fund, and then the 40 down below is the transfer back to the general fund. And of course, you could just wash it out, but it's plainer to show the totals. 40,000 to support the administrative work that the general fund does on behalf of all the other funds, or in this fund, the MSBU fund.
Okay, so the 14,000 is the exemption. I think Jerry might have asked that at a county commission meeting recently. So that's the total we're giving in exemptions right now.
And just in the MSBU fund.
And it's 187 of them times the $75 is how we,
187 different applicants?
I
Right.
believe that was the last.
I think that's right.
Okay.
I think that's right.
So,
Yes, sir.
on the net profit loss, all those projections are losses, is there anything? What's the explanation of that, and is there anything we can do about that?
Really, the biggest thing that'll affect this is the fund. As far as the maintenance, we've improved our maintenance, and we're gotten a lot better there, and our personnel, we've got a control of that. What throws this budget into kilter is the purchasing of replacement vehicles. That's what every 4 years we're replacing a fire truck, and also we've got to build a firehouse. Now, we've got $600,000 in there to build a firehouse. We're going to be applying for a CDBG grant for the firehouse. If we're able to get that, we pull the $600,000 out, and that cures the problem with the out years as far as the negative funding is, the negative bottom line.
Thank you.
So that's what we're going to wait on and see how that works.
What would be the amount of matching funds on that grant?
Probably about $50,000, but it's a $750,000 grant. You have to pay for the design. We have to pay for the design. That's with any CDBG grant. We pay for the design, and once they say, yep, that's good, we submit it, and they give us the money.
So you can build it for the 600 or the 750?
Well, it would probably be for the 600. We wouldn't build a 750, but they would give us monies up to 750,000.
Gives us a lot more points too if we design it up front and out of our own pocket.
Yeah. But that, Dr. Kessler, that would take care of that fund. That would seal the deal. Now, we do have, just to let you know, there's like I said before, there's a $5 increase built into this right now in 16-17 budget, just due to the fact of costs keep going up, but that'll be paced based upon the CDBG grant, as well as it'll be paced based upon economic. If more people move into the county, may not have to do that, but right now, that's our best projection as far as the next increase would be in 16. It would be $5, which would take it to $80 a year. Okay. Any other questions on what we went over so far?
I have one pretty much on the airport, of course. That's when I'm beating a dead horse, but you got 40.
Where are we on this?
What page is that?
I'm just drilling around.
Well, I mean, we'd like to be able to
This is
follow.
actually page 85 when I'm looking at the airport. But you're showing 4,600,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But at the meeting the other night, the guy said 129,000. I know that some of that was grants, but,
Oh, the answer, here's the answer. Page 85 is the general fund dollars going to the airport.
yeah.
The grants are in a different fund, and I'll find that for you real quick.
So that you could say,
They don't mix the two.
I know, but you could say that the 129 is the cost of supporting that
169.
over a 5-year
It's
period.
169, yes, sir.
You could say that.
I reckon, yeah.
Take the master at hiding stuff.
No, it's not a high, it's just a matter of, it's coming out of the state pot, not the county spot. It's just like we track all the grants, so.
Now,
So for the year, our cost for the year out of our pocket would be $5,950 for the airport,
Yes, sir.
That's the anticipated.
That's the anticipated budget.
anticipated.
I thought we also received some rental income.
We're doing, you see that up top, it's the
1320. We're actually looking at, we're exploring a couple of ways to, that we're gonna be bringing to you guys to increase that revenue from the tar pine folks. So we've got a couple ideas we're working
See the
on.
net profit there, net loss, it's negative 46, that's our net cost.
I thought that was user fees, the 1320, that's the rental.
Mhm, that's everything we collect.
That's
right.
everything that's collected in revenue at the airport right now.
How much is it if somebody lands a plane? Just,
We don't have a set fee, no set
so
fee.
they land and take off like a...
That's something we're gonna be bringing to you guys, as well as, a possibility of a fee for the tar pine, homeowners, that we're gonna bring that to you guys as well.
So if someone's
Help
doing
support
touch and
everyone.
goes just to get, if they're doing touch and goes, I mean, they can do touch and goes and touch and goes and touch and goes and not... there's
As the
no-
way it's set right now, no, there's not anything for that.
Well, it shouldn't be.
Well, I'm just saying, there's nothing for that right now, but a landing fee, we have nothing for a landing fee. If it's touch and goes, he's right, they're not really, they're just touching down, so.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate on something. And I mean, even though I'm for the airport.
Okay, yeah,
All right, it's $5 to launch a boat. And if you don't pay the $25 a year and you launch a boat 10 times, it's $5 for every time you launch a boat.
Mhm.
All right, but you can land an airplane for free. And I'm just playing devil's advocate.
well, that's what we're gonna
I've got the
bring
same
to you guys.
concern.
You know, I mean, truthfully.
Don't we even have a policy they're supposed to be paying user fees and we're just not
The only,
enforcing it?
the only, as far as I'm aware of, the only policy that's the enforcement is, or the only thing that is in the enforcement is actually through the association at Tarpine that says they'll pay the county. So, that I can't, I may be mistaken, I have to check on that, but I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I'm
that's-
for the airport, but I'm just trying to.
Oh, yeah,
play
and that's the
devil's,
reason we're
devil's
looking at it, and
advocate, you know.
we're gonna bring back that and
So-
correct that, because this is something that, and I understand, this is something
Yes,
that,
sir.
I had a lot of bigger things to fix, and this now we're getting on this, so.
Okay, but I just want to make a comment on my experience with airports. I don't think I've ever paid in any airport I've landed for a landing fee. I mean, I've flown for years. Okay, I don't know if that's even out there. I know tie-down fees are out there. Okay, you land, you want to put your plane overnight, yeah, you have a fee. And not all airports, but a lot of them. But just to land at an airport, get a Coke and take off again. And usually, to my knowledge, we don't have a fee.
What about an assessment for folks that have an airplane that live in Tarpine?
Those people, they're supposed to be paying fees, and that's really a thorny point right now if they're not paying for it. Those people should be paying. There's an agreement that's been there, I don't know how long. It has to be years now.
Mhm.
And they're supposed to have been paying those fees every year. There's no excuse for them not.
You're gonna have difficulty assessing Tarpine as a group when you've got maybe 6 or 7 airplanes in there that, whatever. They're not gonna really wanna be any part of that.
You know,
Well, that's-
if we've got 5,950 that we're gonna be paying out of our pocket every year, and we've got citizens that own airplanes that aren't helping absorb any of that cost, that's a major thing I think we need.
Well, that's,
You know,
we're gonna
that-
bring it
that's-
up to you guys, and that's the reason they pay you the big bucks, y'all can decide that.
So we're getting a raise?
So anyway, we need to move on to, Bruce Ashley's, item, but just to bring you up to date, if you take, on this budget, and we can talk more after Bruce, and we talk more about other things, but With the sheriff's fund in here and the general fund, we're at about $20,393,000 for the general operations of the county. And when you add in all the grants and everything, what's that number now, Greg? 30?
Add everything together, it's 35.
35.5. Now, understand this, is it looks like we're going to get the grant, we'll be awarded September 20th for the grant for the USDA. Sewer.
37.7.
So that would automatically add $10 million to the budget, but that's all grant dollars. So it'll inflate it, and I'm sure everybody will say, oh my God, that budget's increasing, but it's
How
not.
many dollars?
That's a good thing. From here, it needs to go to 60 million, that way we can get more stuff done.
What
So,
will our cost be to service that grant? Will there be a cost to service it?
no.
No cost?
No, they're gonna, that is the best deal going. They're gonna give us the money. What it'll be is they'll loan us the money to expand the plant, plus then they're gonna give us at least from 40 to 50% grant match of that. And out of that, we're gonna be able to, and they're also gonna refi all of our existing loans. They're refining all those, rolling it into one, and building the plant with that money. So and that's all the design work and everything. So by the time we do that, that'll take that fund and it'll give us capacity moving forward. Actually reduces our capital cost, because it reduces because right now we've got 3 big loans out there. It pulls all those together, lower interest rate, much lower interest rate, and we're actually solvent, and it'll be a very healthy fund.
How much line can we add?
Line, but that'll be up to us in the future that comes out of something different, not out of this. This is purely treatment plant, because right now we're at capacity on our plant. And, it's just like right now, if there were an apartment complex or whatever that come up, we don't have the capacity to serve those. So we've got to expand, and the problem is, you say, well, why don't you just go to the bank and loans and get some money? Yeah, we could do that. Then we got 4 loans, and all of a sudden we're tanked because we're upside down. We're upside down with no capacity and debt, which is in a sewer plant where you don't want to be. So this is an opportunity to turn the tables and start over again, which is good. Okay, Bruce? My turn. Your ball of wax now.
Commissioners, always, thank you for your service. Thank you, County Administrator. Thank you all for just allowing me a few minutes to come up and talk to you a little bit about the item regarding a cut of $150,000 from our COPS grant. And I'll use some words I've heard tonight, looking forward, and already funded. This is a grant that was awarded to the Sheriff's Office in 2012. It was a 4-year program grant with 3 years funded by the grant money, and the 4th year being money that we've set aside and held to fund that 4th year. With that in mind, I wanted to at least let you be fully informed of what we've been doing with those funds. That grant was awarded to only 15% of the applicants who applied for it. We're one of only 7 agencies in the state of Florida that was granted that, and that was based on a fiscal need that was demonstrated in a lot of data gathering that occurred at the time of the application for the grant. So I wanted to mention that today. As part of that grant, we were given the funding through y'all's approval to fill 3 positions, 2 COPS SRO type positions and 1 crime analyst type position. I'll flip through some of these photos, which is evidence of some of the activities. The members of the Sheriff's Office that you see in these photographs.
Is that the sheriff there?
That is the sheriff.
Okay.
And the member standing next to him is one of those COPS-funded positions. Those are COPS-funded deputies right there. And we have, through this program, been able to implement enhanced school security and being at all events and having a greater presence on the school campuses. We have become embedding, if you want to use the word of what happened in some of our previous wars, we embedded ourselves with the youth of our county. And when an offense occurs that involves a child who's witnessed violence or has been a at-risk behavior incident where it involves drugs, alcohol, bullying, cyberbullying, all things that you hear, then we are spending time with these youth in a variety of ways. Those dedicated positions are going back on every offense and re-engaging with those youth, re-engaging with those families, spending time at youth schools and making presentations to them. This program now is moving into almost nearly its third year. It's in its second year. The continuity of building these relationships has already shown an impact. We've had less crime by youth this past summer. This summer we're getting to the end of than in past summers. We attribute some of that to the impact we're having mingling and building those relationships and staying engaged with those families. These are some of the activities that those COPS members have been at. The sheriff obviously avails himself to be at those events as well. And that is the kind of relationship building that we are engaged with, and addressing offenses where at-risk behavior is evidenced either as the child involved or being present for it. It allowed us to embed ourselves at school activities at the end of the school year, where we were able to stop a great deal of alcohol imbibing by our young people and prevent that from happening because we had a greater presence at their events. We were also able to beef up our activities in the community and show up at places youth were gathered, because we had dedicated people that were not answering calls. We were able to build our database, build our intelligence, work those issues, build those relationships. We had kids handing us notes on school buses. We did almost 700 school bus stop checks the last semester of school. There are almost 2,000 bus stops in this county, and there are youth and parents and bus drivers at each of those every morning and every afternoon. We had these dedicated deputies at those locations, and we had other deputies that would fill in when they when they were not answering calls, but these dedicated 3 positions have done that, and they've developed a data sharing program with the Department of Children and Family. A good example would be recently an incident occurred where a youth was involved. We checked and shared data with DCF and found out there is a series of issues going on in that family. Because we're now able to cross-share that data and then become aware of it in our agency, we're doing the same with the Department of Juvenile Justice. We're sharing data with kids who are at risk in our community. It allows us to stay involved with those families through the efforts of these members of the Sheriff's Office. So it has allowed us to go out and do programs such as child identification that we've had, but these dedicated people are able to do a greater extension of those efforts into the community. The school activities, as I've mentioned, the efforts of gathering data and sharing data, the consistency in being able to continue this program is showing impact. It's going to continue to show impact. I don't envy y'all's position ever when it comes to a budget issue, and I know there's a lot of monies somewhere in between the 2,000s and the 3 millions, this little 150,000. I promise you there's probably not a greater impact for that amount of money going on in the community. And the sheriff is serious about us staying involved with our youth, and we'd love to keep this program going. So I thank you for your time.
I think it's a great program.
Thank you, Bruce.
I have a question. I think I heard that we cut 150,000 from this program. Is that what I just heard?
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought the sheriff decides where his cuts come from.
That's true. What we removed was a $150,000 reserve.
Right.
We didn't have the reserve, so we removed that $150,000, and we've subsequently, as I mentioned before, cut $150,000 out.
Okay. So, can I just follow this for a little bit, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Comparing the sheriff's budget this year with last year,
Okay?
in the sheriff's budget,
150. That's right. Okay?
so what is the reduction in the sheriff's budget this year as compared to last year's budget?
If you take the, last year it was $10,360,000, but that was with $250,000 reserve. You take the $250,000 reserve out, actual operating it's the same budget for corrections at, it goes from 10 million last year, 10,110,000 to 9,960,000. The main reduction is in the $150,000 from the law enforcement fund. And realize we put it there because the $150,000 is up to sheriff how they want to take that cut.
Exactly. Okay. So the net reduction comparing the 2 years is, what's that number again?
That reduction comparing the 2 years is $150,000.
Right. And the year before, there was money that was not used. And is that the number that you're referring to as the reserve? Or is that a different number? So
That was an agreement last year when we cranked up the fine and forfeiture fund, that one of the reserves, $100,000 reserve, that was for, we were going into a new contract with our medical group that's there. And that was a reserve in case something went haywire there. And then they asked for $150,000 for the COPS grant reserve, so we gave them that $150,000. Last year we could afford it. This year we can't afford that. If they were to go up, that's right.
Is the
I'm
COPS,
still going.
But the problem is, and this is where the crux of it is, we don't have it to transfer. And they've got their fund to operate in. They can pull their reserve, and take some part of our ad valorem and put it to the $150,000, or the funds that we give them, the 7.4, and put to that $150,000 if they want to, or however they want to do it.
Right. So, just going back to last year, moving into this year, last year there was an amount of money that was not utilized in the sheriff's budget.
We put $250,000 in reserve for them, yes.
Does that, okay, that's what I'm asking. Is that what was left over last year, or that was actually budgeted into reserves? There was an additional amount that was left over?
Yes.
How much was that amount that was left over?
Mary Dean?
I don't know.
You sent back about 86,000. Yeah, $80,000. Then they
Okay, and
had,
then there was the 100,000 or whatever that number is.
Right.
That was given as a retroactive bonus or wage adjustment or whatever we're calling that, which I still personally have a large issue with. So that's 183,000. That was not budgeted for specific line items that was to be spent. So it's 183,000 in my mind that was not used technically by the sheriff's department. If we take that $100,000 and say they were not given authority by the board to do that retroactive raise or salary adjustment. So it's $183,000. Was that $183,000 counted into this present budget? In other words, was that a baseline where that $183,000 was, again, here's what you're starting with?
Again, as I get older, I hear less.
come to the podium, please.
Okay, and so while we're dealing with that question, there's also the issue of solvency of all of our budgets as we move forward. And I thought we had gone through some numbers that showed that if the sheriff didn't make a cut of, I think the number is 300,000, that in short order, the sheriff's budget would become insolvent,
That's
would be
correct.
in the red.
That's correct. Yes, sir, that would be in 15-16, it would be in the red.
The fine and forfeiture fund is just an extension of the general fund, and all other counties in the state of Florida who have a fine and forfeiture fund are funded through general fund means. They do a transfer in from the general fund whenever there's a decline in the revenue source.
But yes, that they have a fund balance This year, right now, that fund balance started out the year at 984. The problem is the fund balance, we're projecting it to be $556,000 going into next year. That's due to the loss of revenue or unanticipated loss of revenue that we got from the ICE inmates, which is going to be about $2.1 million. And that'll be the drop in that fund. And that's no matter how you slice it, we're not making the revenues. We don't have the revenues without raising the taxes to make this fund whole through just giving it more ad valorem dollars. You'd have to raise taxes to do that. So that's where we're at. Raise taxes or cut funds, or cut programs. You'd have to line up other programs to cut to get this fund. But also, that's the reason we're pulling in the fund. It's just like other funds. You got a fund, you got a bottom line. Work to that bottom line.
Yeah,
So,
like I said,
we've got to fund them fairly, but yet that's the whole part of it. So
I don't understand the premise of the sheriff's office getting such a large hit this year. We've lost our cops reserve, $150,000. We have agreed to cut 4 positions because we have not received a dime for any of the increase in Florida retirement or CHP. So we have 4 lost positions. And now I understand tonight that we've got another $150,000 that is presented before us.
Well, we talked about that. We're cutting $150,000 this year. It was either cut $150,000 this year or $300,000, but we split it because what the hope is that ICE will correct itself, and if we can sustain at 2.5, you'll only have to cut $150,000 next year with the way that our economy's growing, and then the fund's okay. If we don't get the 2.5, we're in bad problems. If we sustain at 2.1, we've got a decision to make. At 2.1, we're going to even raising it, even cutting $300,000 is not going to get us there.
And we're getting 2.1 now?
We're getting 2.1 right now. We just got an increase of the per diem, up $5+. We don't have a contract as of yet, am I right?
Yes,
No contract.
We do have a signed contract, we've got the contract
For the $5,
$5.12.
but not for a guarantee.
No, they're not giving any of the 4 counties, Monroe, Glades, Baker, and Wakulla County, they're not giving any guaranteed numbers. But talking to the regional director for ICE in Miami, talking to our attorney in Washington, and talking to other counties, we feel that by October 1st, the numbers are going to start going back up now, because they're dealing with immigration reform now in Washington. Once that's settled out, we think that the numbers are going to climb back up. And one more thing, I'd like to mention, Mary Dean said we had cut 4 positions. One of these positions was a filled position, a major over law enforcement position that we had to write out of the budget. September 30th, the man will not have a job. So we had to write that out to try to save some funds.
Is the 150 in addition to all of that, David? I mean, the 150 would, so if the 150 you was talking about, if we take the 150 out, is that pretty much gonna gut the cops grant? I mean, is that gonna gut it to where it's
What they would have to do is when we take that reserve out, they'll have to pull 150 out of their funds that we give them and park it in that reserve. That's what they want to do. They can make it up through pulling more money out of reserves, but that further exasperates the problem.
It's my understanding, Richard, that the reserves, as the burn is now,
I know you can
will only last 2 years.
about 2 years.
I would like to say one thing, that Sheriff Creel is not responsible for this deficit that we're shooting at. We'll just say the whole thing is he's not responsible for that. And when I heard that we were going to do 300, I said I wasn't going to support that, and I'm sure we all pretty much agree the same. That, for whatever it's worth, we're at 150. I would not support the 300, and I don't like supporting the 150. Hopefully the numbers will come back up. We're all hoping and praying they're coming back up. I tend to be optimistic and think that they are going to come back up. One other thing I would like to mention about the COTS program, and Bruce did an excellent job of explaining it, and most of that had to do with children, but our people that are in the COTS program now are going to visit every business in this county
and sit down and talk law enforcement issues with them, security issues with them, theft issues with them. So they've got a list, and they're going to visit every business we've got. I can't think of a sheriff's office in the state that's doing that now, and we're going to be able to do that through our COPS program.
And one last note on COPS, in year 15-16, we will be coming before the board and asking for your support for $150,000 in our budget in order to keep this COPS grant going.
I'd like to make sure I follow and understand something here, just kind of picking up on where Howard was and the 83,000 that was returned back to the county, and then just giving the benefit of the 100,000 that you're talking about, 183,000. If we take last year's budget of 10,350,000 and subtract that 183, that gets us down to 10,177,000. It's pretty close to where we're budgeted now, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Sheriff's Department has absorbed the FRS increases and the insurance and the Social Security, where most of our other budgets, we physically see an increase, that we've budgeted those in, and those departments are now higher, and these guys are pretty close to where they were last year if we take that 183 back out of it. So, I mean, that's something big to consider as well.
Do you think in October that the numbers would, Sheriff Creel, do you think in October the numbers for the ICE would be higher? I mean, are you anticipating them?
Commissioner, I'm not a wizard, and I don't have a crystal ball, but in my own mind, I feel they are going to go back up. I really do. 10 million is a lot of money for a budget of a sheriff's office. We did a survey of counties in comparison to ours, population-wise, and what their budgets were and what our budgets were. There's 2 counties that were in that list of 12 counties that did not have a local police department. So what we did, we got the budgets for those local police departments and added them to the county sheriff's office budgets in those counties. And we come in at number 9 out of 12 because we don't have a local police department. But number 9 out of 12 with the on budget-wise. We do a lot of stuff that people don't realize we do. We've got 2 incorporated cities in this county. We provide them law enforcement for nothing, whereas other cities have their own police departments, so they have to pay for that. And down in Broward County, you've got cities like Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach, and like those. They disbanded their police departments, and now they contract with the sheriff's office and pay the sheriff's office to provide them law enforcement. We don't do that. We don't want to do it because it's a community thing. We provide their law enforcement services free of charge. This is just another example of things that we do to try to save money here in the county.
Also, too, our law enforcement budget is sitting at 0607 levels. So with these additional cuts, we're going to be stretched even lower.
I asked Sheriff Creel to make the comparison. We get the comparison from David and Greg, and I asked them to put the other police departments in their number, and then I asked them to get together with David and Greg and make sure everybody agrees to what they're, what it is. And when y'all agree on that, I'm going to be interested in seeing cost per citizen, cost per whatever, in relation to whatever's.
Well, and that's good, but as I've warned each one of you, in comparing, that is a hard thing to do.
It is hard. It is hard, but you need
Right, and we talked about that. We've talked about that, and they're throwing in the police departments, but the problem is you throw the whole thing in there. If all of a sudden we had to take care of Crawfordville, how many folks would the sheriff lay off because Crawfordville, and they're not, well, I don't know if we really change much what we're doing. So what is that true impact of having a city inside the sheriff's department? Is there an impact? Yes. What is that? Is it 1-to-1 like everything? No, it's not 1-to-1. So what is that number? And we can guess.
Not a problem. All I'm asking is just the 2 of you agree on the numbers you come up with.
Right.
And when y'all agree, then I can assume that you've looked at whatever you want to talk about,
right,
and you've come to a middle ground understanding. Then you can look, is the sheriff's department number 1 in expenditures, or are they number 10 in relation to whatever? So that's all I'm saying. is that?
Well, and I think, realize you got a fund here. No matter what happens, if you say, okay, well, let's increase it $150,000, and let's pull it out of our reserves. That's what we'd have to do. And/or we'd have to figure out we're gonna cut the library out, we're gonna cut out. We gotta cut another department to fund the sheriff's department. Okay? Do you do that, or do you say, well, if y'all want the $150,000 grant, COPS program, pull it out of your reserves, or pull it out of the fund up here, pull it out of the funds general funds dollars we'll give you, and y'all, when you allow them to use $150,000 out of their reserves. That's really the question, because the problem is there's just not enough money to go around.
Well, and that 150 is gonna remain in reserves throughout the entire year and go into next year, correct? We're not gonna physically spend the 150 this year.
That's right.
It'll just stay as reserve.
That's right.
What would it take for them to be able to fund the COPS program this year?
Well, they need the $150,000 sitting in reserve.
The 150 is just on the fourth year, we can guarantee that we've got the money sitting there to pay the fourth year we're responsible for.
We already cut in order to provide that amount.
I see. So the 150 we're cutting is what was set back.
Yes.
So we set back the 150 for the fourth year, but that's the 150 that we're cutting.
In actuality, it may, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, we're not, it's 150, it's not the COPS program. It's just it's 150, whatever that's worth, and it can be wherever the...
Yeah, they can pull that out of the, where,
We're actually cutting
Well, yeah.
150 for the COPS grant, an additional 150, and $226,000 for CH and FRS.
I'm not going to debate you, Mary Dean, you're too far ahead of me. We're 150 this year.
We're cutting 150.
And I told David I wouldn't support 3. We're 150 this year, we're 150 next year. For whatever reason. Is that not correct?
Why are we being treated any different than any other county office?
you're being treated just like every other fund that I've treated. And we're trying to get this fund into the black and keep it in the black in the long term, and looking over the long term, we have you can't revenue your way out of this. You've got to, there's got to be a basic cut, then you can pull out, because let me tell you, this thing, this fund, and it's not Sheriff Crill's fault, but that ICE inmate, that can bring the county to its knees. That is a dangerous thing, and right now it's at 2.1, and if it stays 2.1 next year, we got a bigger problem next year we're talking about. Much bigger than, much bigger. You're talking...
2.1, we got a real problem. So
right, you can choose, you want to revenue your way out of it, or do you want to try to toe the line and wait and see what happens to this revenue, and then make a big decision later on if we have to. That's your choice, it's which way do you want to do it.
Richard. And when you say revenue your way out of it, you're talking about increasing taxes, fees, etc.
That's right.
Thank you.
In the event that the ICE inmates increase, then basically that's their money to use.
It's their money to use, and that's the answer to all our prayers. If that increases, that makes things a lot better. This fund gets better and better and better, and then we can absorb, then they can, put 3 or 4 COPS programs going on, but it makes it better. But I'm telling you that, as we've all said before, that ICE inmate revenue is so dangerous. It is just, it's so dangerous.
I agree with you. I've been saying it for years.
Yep.
The whim of some bureaucrat can sign a piece of paper and do away with it.
That's right.
One of the things that makes me optimistic that the numbers are going to go up, ICE just built a $20 million facility in Tallahassee for processing the detainees and for them to run this region. That building has got 2 holding cells in it, not meant to hold them or detainees overnight. They could hold them for 12 hours. We're 20 minutes away. The next closest facility that houses ICE detainees is in Baker County, which is 160 miles away. And I had to explain it to their regional director, and I had to explain it to their contract person in Washington, that if they call us at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and say, we got 5 detainees that are ready to be released, we've already processed them, can you come get them? We can run up there and get them. they call at 8 o'clock at night, we can run up there and get them. They call Baker County at 8 o'clock at night and said, we've got 3 for you to come get. They've got to drive 3 hours to come get them. And I feel that ICE is going to make us their lead facility to detain these detainees.
How many people would it take you to raise that? How many people do you need to cover that 150?
I told them, at one time we started off with a minimum of 90. We wanted 90, and they said...
I mean, the $150,000.
Right.
How much do you get off each ICE inmate?
$76.64
Per month?
per day.
Per day?
Per day, per detainee.
Times 365, so I don't know what that would be.
I got a number cruncher back here, she can probably figure it out.
I'm working on that now.
7660.
One inmate, it's the new rate, $79.66.
$79.66, correct, I'm sorry.
Times 365.
Right.
That's $29,000.
Right.
So one inmate generates 29.
So we're looking at 5 inmates.
5 or 6?
Right, 5 or 6. To get that 150 back. But, when I was talking to the ICE people, they were kind of backing out, trying to give us the increase of 512. And I told that guy from ICE that I was talking to, I said, if we decide to get out of this, how long is it going to take you to come get your detainees? Because we're going to put them in the parking lot. And the next day, I think, they called back and said, we're going to give you your increase, because they do want to keep us. And I just feel optimistic about the whole thing.
Even though, we still gotta work out the money. I mean, as far as the COPS program, I'm very supportive of the COPS program, and I look at it as a huge investment into the county.
Sure.
But I know at the same time, we have to fund it.
Yeah.
So even though, we gotta find a way to fund it, I just wanna say I am very supportive of the program and feel it's a huge investment.
Thank you, Commissioner.
If the economy comes back, the same people that are in the ICE there will be an influx of...
That's correct, that's my thing.
So they will be...
Sheriff Krill and I, we talked about this last week. We both feel that if the ICE this year doesn't stabilize at over $2.1 million, that based on what he's having to go through and the expenses he's having to expense out and the trouble and everything else, that we next year are going to have to take a hard look as to whether we continue ICE.
That's right. We're going to have to look how we're going to wean off of it.
That's right. We'll have to start a process to where somewhere down the line you got to say, stop.
Yeah.
This ain't, we're treading water here.
Off the roller coaster.
And that hammer's still way up there on top of our head.
Yeah.
Somewhere we got to say,
Well, if they have a new facility and we're so close and they need somebody out in a hurry,
That's exactly right. And I told them, I said, if we get out of holding ICE detainees, and then you realize later on, y'all got a big expense transporting these people back and forth to Baker County, 3 hours away, and y'all are losing money because y'all are having transport fees and this, that, and the other, don't call me asking if we're going to take it back, if we're not going to take it back. And we, the jail's a nightmare. I mean, if you guys want it, I'll give it to you. I mean, I can't stand it, but it's just,
Keep up with the keys.
we don't want it.
you want the keys, Commissioner? But, anyway, hopefully we'll work through all this.
So it sounds like we're within 150,000, is that, I mean, that's, and it bothers me that Mary Dean thinks that she's being treated differently in the other departments, because we need to all be on the same team. And we need to figure out a way that we can be comfortable with that. We all know that we're dealing with declining revenues, and you guys have done a fantastic job absorbing some things that happen beyond our control, but we want to make sure that's fair. And I try to break things down simple. The 5 of us just paying us, that's gone up 24% over last year. County admin's gone up 23%. If we just look at those basic numbers, property appraiser's gone up 2%, supervisor of elections 5.5, tax collector's gone down. Good job, Sheriff. Sheriff's always the truth. I mean, it goes on, and then the sheriff's is down 2.4%. So maybe we want to take a look at that. Maybe we want to close that gap, because even though it's not here
What are you showing what are you showing our office doing? Where are we?
as far as the commissioners,
Well, no, I know you said 24%, and
county admin, 23% increase. And most of that is FRS and insurance and social security, you know,
Out of our control.
but it's still, that budget went up 23%, theirs is going down 2%. So I don't want to disregard when they think they're being treated differently.
I understand.
But there's a different situation over here. They have an agreement that has income built into that. They get almost all our ad valorem. They get, and they get the revenue from the jail and from, the ICE. So it's a different situation. When things are tight for them under this agreement, it seems to me they have to cut the belt, tighten it, okay? When it's good for them, they're rolling. We don't have that same situation for us.
But have we bailed them out, or have they bailed us out historically in the past couple of years?
The past couple of years, but if you go back to, again, what is the baseline realistic budget for the sheriff's department? And has it been an inflated budget going back in years? And why continue to promote that, what may be a bloated budget?
David has just given them a budget that tells them
And I'm
that.
on board with the 150.
To cut it, or?
Yeah.
And then you just leave it at that, 150, and you're good?
Well, I would have liked it to have been the 300, because I think we're kicking the can down the road of possible bigger problems. I think, it's like Sheriff Creel says, he's not a wizard. He doesn't know what's coming. When you ask your stockbroker, well, should I buy this or not? And they give you their prediction, past performance doesn't lead to future
That's part of the problem, is you've got an uncertain revenue and you're doubling down if you throw revenue
And I
at it.
think we have to be conservative here, all of us, and I think our administration has really set a good path for us to get there. I mean, it's not easy.
I agree.
But this is a conservative approach, and I think the compromise is a reasonable compromise, and I'm willing to be there for that.
One thing that I'd like to see in addition, and I know it's in here, I just haven't put it in an easy-to-see format, is a side-by-side comparison of all the fund balances, so we can see, where we're meeting it, where we're exceeding it, where we're far short. If we could get that would give us a good glance to see where our big holes are that we need to fill and where we're safe.
I got a lot of tabs, but that's one that
Well, now, as far as the COPS grant, is it the 14-15 year or the 15-16 that you won't have money for that? 15-16? But they won't, the 150 wouldn't be there for the fourth year, then, right? So there would be no more COPS grant then at that point, which would affect,
The grant requires you to fund it.
I don't have a good handle on it, but I need
We
it.
would like to continue to fund it indefinitely. The way we had it established was we can just pull it from reserves and just move it over and use that money.
Hopefully the economy will be better by the time this thing runs out where we can get it funded, because it is a good program. It's like Bruce said, if a child gets in trouble nowadays, we do follow up. We go to their house, we talk to their parents, we visit with them, we make sure they're attending class, we make sure they're keeping their grades up. We work closely with them to try to keep them out of trouble.
are we gonna be able to are we gonna be able to meet the grant requirement for that fourth year?
I think so, yeah.
He's gonna leave it off.
To at least meet their grant, right? And then we would have to look at that point, being able to go, okay.
Correct. Start with general fund and I'll go to one.
Randy, we're gonna try to hit the high points of all the main operating fund balances. So if you can go to, the 001 total tab. Commissioners, one of the things that you're looking at different, your budget includes cash forward and reserves. That skews your picture of fund balance. And so what's on the screen here, if you go back to the 001 total, just the 001 total.
Oh, there you go.
This takes out the cash forward and the reserves and shows you a true picture of where fund balance is headed in the out years. And can you blow that up any? So the general fund for 13-14, the red column, we're anticipating that we're going to end next year with $2.1 million. Now you'll notice we're starting the year with 2.4. We're planning on spending down fund balance with the fuel contamination and the vinyl.
The sheriff's roof.
So we'll drop to approximately 2.15. That's carried forward to the next year, it drops to 2.1, 2 million the next year, 2 million, 2 million, and then 1.9 in the 5th year. So it continues to drop every year based on this 5-year plan, but it's still in a safe zone, safe area. It's not where we need to be. We need to continue to increase those reserves. It really needs to be. You'll notice the fund balance policy says we ought to have 2.5. So in that 5th year, we're going to be $600,000 short of the policy. It's not a danger zone yet. It's not like we were when the auditor started telling you, you've only got, less than a month's worth of operating, but there's your general fund trend. Right there.
What does that represent as far as the 2 million?
Well, 2.5 is 25% for 3 months, the 2.5 million. So 1.9 is just slightly less than 3 months, maybe 2.5. So it's not, that's why I say it's not in a dangerous zone.
And we've had discussions, and we're going to be bringing you guys a couple of options, is we need to increase that. We need to increase our general fund reserve, as that's the most important fund when it comes to emergencies. That's the minimum, is the 3 month. There's a couple of ways we can do it, and we're going to bring that to you for the out years. Okay.
Is your reserve up there now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When is that reserve?
Where the fund balance beginning, highlight that real quick there, Brittany. There you go. It's going to start out the year at 2.4. We're going to burn into it this year at 265,000, and we've got a 2.1. We're going to end it with 2.1 and start the next year out at 2.1. It goes to 2.
And that's our reserve.
That's our reserve. Okay. That's just that reserve. We got a pool cash reserve of about $9 million, $8 million now. But that is the general fund. That's the main one that we pay emergencies out of.
Which banks do we have that reserve in? Amerispec.
And we're supposed to maintain a 25% reserve there. So so line 63 in the parentheses.
That's the
If
deficit.
it's in parentheses, that means we're not meeting fund
That's right.
policy.
That's right.
And it's not dangerously out of it, like he said, but if we're going to shoot for meeting our policy, we need to close that gap, and that needs to be slightly positive.
That's right.
Okay, that 5th year, though, it gets worse and worse.
Right.
Right.
And that's the reason we need to, that's making decisions year to year is tough. That's where you need this long range look.
So that's where I would like to ask for a copy of the fund balance for each fund, so we can take a look at that and see, we're fairly close there, but there's probably some others that
Well, we're fixing to rifle through.
Oh,
We're going to
good.
rifle through it right now.
Let's
All right, go to the building fund.
Yeah.
Go to the building fund, Brittany, please.
That building fund, as I understand, has got about a 700,000 surplus.
All right, it won't for very long. All right, blow that up, please, ma'am. All right, this is the fund. If you remember, we're going to start the year out next year at $635,000, probably a little heavier than that, because we've actually been operating the black for the past 4 to 5 months in this fund. So it's probably going to be higher than $635,000, but right now our projection is $635,000. And as you'll see, our fund balance policy should be 91,000. But we're also implementing a plan over the years to lower down the building permit cost. And that's reflective in the profit loss of 122,000, 93,000. What it is a gradual burn of that fund policy, so that we don't carry such a high fund balance in this. But what this does is it helps our economy. It lowers the cost of building, et cetera. And we hope this will actually spur the economy, as well as it replaces some vehicles they hadn't had replaced, and they held on to this money. At the end of the day, it needed to be done something with.
And in year 4 and 5, it drops to 132 and 69, and so, that fifth year, it's probably too low. You'll notice it's $24,000 too low, but we can tweak that in coming years so it's not so low.
So Commissioner Thomas, that's out of the two funds there right now, they're good.
That's probably the best one we have, I assume.
No, hold on.
As far as
Yeah, it's probably percentage-wise. Oh, yeah.
Not dollar.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Then Fund 150, the one we were just talking about, the Sheriff's Fund, we're thinking that we're going to end the year, our projection is we're going to end the year at 556,000. With the cuts that are in there, blow that up, please, ma'am. The 2-year cuts, this fund balance, realize this fund balance policy is a little different than the other fund balance policies. What we had determined was we had to replace the jail bed revenue. So therefore, that's the reason that number is so high. We've had, was it 1.5 or 2, or is 2.5 is what we had projected in there.
In prior meetings, we had determined that if we lost ICE completely, the net cost to the county is $1.7 million. So it was determined, okay, we need to build a 2-year buffer so that if we ever lose that revenue, we've got 2 years to figure out what we're going to do. So that's $3.4 million right there. And then on top of that, or aside of that, so, pie in the sky, the best case scenario would be to also have 25% of operating revenues in 3 months. And that's how you get to the 5.9. It's a ridiculously high number, but given the craziness with the ICE and where that might go, that was the purpose of building the fund balance policy that way. And it may need to change, and that can happen. But
Probably over the winter time, or probably right before Christmas, I've asked Mary Dean and Sheriff to get together and talk about, and let them basically come out with a new sheet of paper saying, if we lost ICE today, how would you run if you just clean the slate and said, okay, now how would we run it? Now really, how many admin staff do you need? Now how many jail folks? Now how many law enforcement guys? All that stuff, just a new day. A new day, if you were to reorganize, forget all the faces, forget all the personalities, what would that be? So that we can have a number that we can come back to and say, then we can start planning towards, if we lose it, if we cut it out, here's what we're up against.
At least have the plan.
At least have the plan, yes, sir. And I'd rather do that in a time that we had it versus an emergency, because that's where you make mistakes, is when you're in an emergency situation. Okay, let's move to the next fund.
But if I could add,
Okay.
it's important to note that if we had a good positive fund balance in there now, like we should, even if it's not the inflated figure we talked about, we wouldn't be too concerned about losing ICE,
Right,
because
right.
we'd have it. So
That's right.
So we need to know that, so we know where our big targets are, and we can start closing those things up.
That's right. You're exactly right.
And one more thing is, just to show you how tight this really is, you look at that fund balance down there, it's going to fluctuate between 400,000 in the end of this coming year, and year 5 is 439. And you look at that and you say, well, that's a lot of money, but that's a half of a month of what we send to the sheriff's office each month. So that's 2 weeks of operations in fund balance.
That's just like in your own house. You better not get short. You better not just have a half a month in the bank. You'll be in trouble.
Yeah. 160, which is the road fund. Greg, hit this one real quick. I'm losing my voice.
gotten this thing turned around. See, it's hard to see the year there, but if you look at the bottom, see the bottom, that bottom will show you which year you're looking at. 13-14, we think we're going to end with $175,000 in fund balance. That's a $58,000 positive. And you'll notice that each year, the net income is 50 to 60 something, 70 something thousand dollars. And so it'll ultimately build to a $500,000 fund balance, which is just $26,000 more than what the fund balance ought to be in that 5th year out. And so it takes us 5 years to get to our policy level. So it's a 5-year plan to get there.
But that's what the policy was doing around, do it in 5 years.
Do it and slowly be able to get there. So we're, as long as we don't have anything blow up, this fund should be fine.
All right, let's go to,
When we have debt, we've got to maintain 100% of 1 year's debt service as our fund balance.
Well,
Is
see,
that-
that's the thing is, it's hard to see there, but that's Fund 160, which is your operating fund. If you go down below that, you have the 2-cent gas tax fund, and they're really the same, but we separate them for restricted purposes. The 2-cent gas tax buys your capital, and it's paying for your past capital purchases, and it has a separate fund balance. And so, is that it right there?
yeah.
Yeah. You'll notice that you have on top of your operating fund balance, a fund balance of 154 next year, dropping down to 64 in year 5. And so as that debt gets paid off, you have to have less here. So we've already taken care of that in this separate fund.
Yes.
So
What part of the gas tax do we get? You got
there's a total of 10 pennies that we collect, and it varies. Some pennies are on diesel, and some pennies are on
what
gas
comes
and
back?
diesel.
How many pennies may come back? Just generally speaking, how many pennies comes
Roughly,
down?
it's 10 pennies.
Okay. If Tallahassee raises
10
their gas
cents.
tax 5 cents, we're going to get a big bump in the number of people that quit buying in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
If they raise 5%, that will
You'd be
change.
surprised, just because they raised it 5%, I doubt the gas in Tallahassee would go up.
But
Very doubtful.
But here's the problem with that is, it's a very flat revenue. If you think about, we get 10 cents every time you buy a gallon, even if all 10 cents were on every gallon. If next year they raise their gas taxes a $1, and suddenly we have another $1 million worth of gas bought in our county, which is highly
Million gallons,
unlikely.
million gallons.
A million
Yeah.
gallons, that's $100,000. And $100,000 is not a lot.
All we get is 10 pennies.
I understand that.
Not the percent.
I do
That's right,
understand that.
that's right.
If
So it's very
lots and lots
flat.
of, that nickel, people drive all over the country to save a dime, and they'll spend 20 cents to save the dime, and you can do that if you drive over them 2 miles out of,
Right.
2 miles there and 2 miles back, you just lost your advantage. But people will do that, so I'm thinking that if,
Well, and I'm not suggesting that people don't buy their gas here, and I think someone else has commented, every time somebody buys their gas in Tallahassee, they're buying Leon County's police cars and Leon County's fire trucks.
And maintaining
And
the
not
roads.
ours. And that's true.
But, and the problem is, say, if you say we eliminate our gas tax, you go to Walmart, you pay the same thing today, and then you eliminate it tomorrow, you'll pay the same thing tomorrow.
They just make a little more money.
That's right.
someone told me, and I won't mention companies, but someone told me that there was a company that set the standard for gas prices, that if you dropped your price, this person had to, if you drop your prices, then basically speaking, this particular company drops theirs, so you no longer make any money. So rather than everybody losing money, they stay up here at a higher level. So the big guy goes up to the higher level too. So that's why our prices don't drop. We do not have the
Right,
competition to make it.
that's right.
And one more thing to illustrate, in your budget document, you've got 10 years worth of gas tax history, and it's on page 232 if you want to turn there, and you can see how even over a 10-year period, it really is quite
Yeah, one of the problems the city of Tallahassee is running into is now more and more of their vehicles are being converted over to natural gas and more electric cars. Therefore, those gas is not being sold as much, and so that's a revenue problem throughout the country, especially in larger municipalities now. So they're trying to figure out now tax natural gas.
State revenue.
Yeah, because all of a sudden your revenues are going down, but yet the same amount of cars and things are on the road, tearing the roads up. Let's move to Fund 180, please. This is our Fire and MSBU fund, Fire MSBU fund, I should say. And you'll notice we've got, we're anticipating ending the year at 382, or beginning the next year at 382,201 in fund balance.
Give me a dot over there where I can follow.
Blow that up a little bit more there, Britt, please.
Yeah, well,
Where is it?
whoever has the pointer, put the pointer where you don't.
Put it back up. That's okay, that's pretty easy.
Don't press that one.
Which one? I know, there's one that cuts it off, I do know that.
While he's finding that budget there, we currently have $788,000 in fund balance.
Fire and EMS,
No, just fire.
fire.
And we're, in the current year that we're in, we're buying $330,000 worth of equipment. Okay, and so that's why you see a huge drop from the 788, down there. That's one of the reasons.
Anyway, here's your, in next year's budget, we're going to end at 382. End the year at 206, but if you notice, we're going to start out at above, better than fund balance. At the end, everything works, go out the way it is, and we end it at a negative 133, or 133 down. But as you see, we spend down, this fund balance spends down. This fund balance, though, understand, we got an increase in 15-16, Sean. That increase could, if the economy betters and more homes are built, the better this fund does. So that's the reason this is one of them where we're not going to make a dramatic change in any operations until we see next year how the economy goes and more houses, because you don't want to make a sudden change here because the economy may fix it. It could very well fix it.
But we're heading in the wrong direction this year, because
That's what I'm saying, we're at fund balance and we're spending down because we're spending all this equipment, but also we've got that $600,000 nut in there. If we get our CDBG grant thing, all of a sudden we get, where is that?
Randy, take that 600,000 out.
Take the 600 out, take it out of revenue as well.
I think it is out there.
No, there it is, take it out of revenue. Now go down, we gotta take out the loan payments. That's it right there, that's the point, take those out. Take them out through the out years. No, that's the fire trucks, don't take those. No, isn't it, Greg, yeah, it would be,
we're going from a 300,000 on positive fund balance to
as you can see, wow, that starts, you start correcting the fund levels itself out, and it starts to rebound back again.
I just prefer to see us push that down the road, because we're 374,000 above our fund balance policy, and now we're gonna take it 133,000 below in 1 year. I mean, that's a $500,000 swing
Yep.
in 1 year. Why have a policy if we're not making decisions that's gonna keep us in compliance with the policy?
Well, I think we'll get there. If you notice, the next year, if we don't do that, we're building back up. not necessarily, we're 16, 17, we start to trend back up. And because that's the purpose of it, is, some years as we're buying capital equipment now, all we gotta do is delay, we can delay for a year, and that makes it a little bit better, you know what I mean? Or time out, and we don't have to buy the fire truck in these out years, we could delay a year, and that would help fund balance out.
I mean, just my preference, I'd prefer us to look at those things, just like the roof at the sheriff's department. The only reason it's a problem in an emergency right now is because we don't have the money in the fund. And, if we start taking these below our fund balance policy, we create similar problems that we don't have those funds when those emergencies do arrive. I think we ought to make a commitment to stay, positive on those fund balances unless it's just absolutely an emergency and unavoidable.
How, are those trucks a part of the problem of breaking down and needing repairs? Has this been one of the decisions that says we have to do something about these trucks? Is that...
Yeah, we operate 30 fire trucks in the county, and we rotate them. In fact, our main fire truck this past week dropped an axle out on getting out on the 319. So we have to change these out, because what we do is we start them out on the new ones naturally with our permanent folks, and then rotate them down the line and then kick out the older ones. And realize we got some 1980 model, 70 model trucks out there that have already been run forever. And the problem is you're right, and if you don't have that's this fund is the replacement. It's managing the capital replacement cost is what it boils down to, because the rest of it is fairly set cost. That's your capital cost here is what burns you.
And I'm agreeing with Ralph. I totally understand and I'm on board with you as far as the policy. I like to see us stick to the policy as much as possible. But if we're in a situation where these trucks are costing us more to maintain, then it just makes better sense to go out there and bite.
And that's the balance.
And I know that's a tough, prediction to make.
Yeah.
I just know that if we go from a healthy fund balance and we start creeping negative, it's going to make it easier to try to justify increasing the fire MSBU because we're negative, and we need to start driving it up. And I think we need to head that off and avoid it instead of being boxed into that decision.
One of the things we could look at, just like our administrator said, is instead of, was it the 4 trucks you have scheduled in, maybe 3?
Yeah, I mean, that's things that we can look at, but, I mean, if you gotta have a plan, and I'd rather, my thing on the increase is I don't wanna have to increase it, but also, we gotta say, if we do what's on our plan, our regular rotation schedule, here's what we're up against. Now, we can change that rotation, but then what are you doing? You gotta balance all that out, and the problem is if, like I say, the economy could help fix a lot of this, but also understand, if you're still collecting $75 on the same amount of people, and you're running the same amount of fire trucks, and you got every year costs go up. Somewhere those things meet to where you're gonna have to increase, if you don't have some growth to offset that.
I think Chief Morgan, was you wanting to say something?
I don't want to counter my boss,
Okay.
He wants the fire trucks.
I think you all understand that the reason we're talking about it is there are 2 trucks today sitting under the shed getting fixed. They're the 2 biggest trucks we have. Both broke this week. And those are the new, one of those is 4 years old. And we're running fire trucks that are 1995 and 1996, which sounds like that's great, except we rely on that truck to go from 0 to however long it's needed in a heartbeat. And 1996 is not doing it, and I will hush.
Anyway, all right, well, let's move on. 317, please. This is your 1-cent sales tax.
Now,
Go ahead.
one thing I was gonna comment on is you're looking again at 4 different fund balances, one for roads, one for public safety, one for facilities, one for parks. You can look at it all together, but they're really segregated, so.
And realize your fund balance policy here, we're assuming that this goes away in the 5th year. So really, your fund balance policy here is not as critical, especially in the funds that don't have, where we're not paying off a loan to the Taj Mahal, excuse me, that's the courthouse, I'm sorry, that we had to do.
So when you say, assuming it's gonna go away, just assuming it's not gonna be renewed?
That's right, that's right.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no, I think what he's talking about is you only need a required fund balance
Right,
with an operating fund or with a fund that has a loan payment.
Right.
but our assumption here is that it's gonna go out. So that's the way we go, and at the end of 5 years, we're assuming we're not gonna have it.
We're spending
So-
down the cash
That's right,
in anticipation that this just goes away.
that's right. And now if we get it re-up next year,
You can gravy then.
yeah, then we can project, we don't have to use all that cash, and we can spread the cash out further. But what we're assuming is we're gonna burn that cash out. As you'll see, the first fund that we come to here is roads. And this coming up year, well, you can see we're gonna spend $1.2 million in roads. You can see the spending, how it goes on. And one thing I would like you to notice, and hopefully when we get this renewed, we'll eliminate the principal and interest on our loans in that top 9 and 10. We'll eliminate that principal and interest, which is up here. Can you look right? We'll be eliminating, go to your right. You see that principal and interest, it pretty much ends in 15, 16. We got a little bit right there. All right, if you'll notice, look how it jumps up. What we can do, we're almost at what we can pave between the two paving. We're at $925,000 a year we could sustain at paving and resurfacing roads in this county. That's the route we should go instead of borrowing money to do a big bunch of them.
100%.
It really locks us down.
100% agree with that.
So anyway, that's that fund. Like I say, these fund balances are, unless there's a fund, let's go down to the facilities.
Now, we are still negative 400,000 on our fund balance policy, is that right?
Yeah.
In the current year?
Yep. That's because we're burning cash out. We've got enough to cover the loan, but we don't have enough for that.
And this is one of those categories, if we've got a debt, we're required to remain, or maintain 100% of 1 year's debt service in the fund balance, correct?
Correct. The 1 cent sales tax facilities, this is where we pay the Taj Mahal out of, and that's you'll see that's 235. Well, really, we bumped up.
It's 292.
It's 292 now. It was 230 or 242. Now it's 292.
Where are you on your board? Okay.
Loan payment.
We're right there. Okay, that's the loan payment for the Taj Mahal. Then
That goes away when?
that goes away at the end of the 17, at the end of the sales tax. It was leveraged out all the way to the end.
And that was paid with 1% sales tax?
1 cent sales tax, yes, sir. That's right. As you'll see there, we maintain a healthy fund balance here. This is actually where we have some money left over here because we're maintaining a fairly healthy fund balance. And this is where we'll have some money that we can expend out in the future years as well, that we can add on if we need to. All right, let's move to public safety. And this one is near and dear to Mary Dean's heart, so don't say anything bad about it. She will. She has a little doll up there. She'll start punching you, so. You can mess with the law enforcement corrections, but don't mess with her 1 cent sales tax. Are you stuck?
Yeah. We already had some issues.
Okay. Anyway, that fund balance, there's not anything out of there that we've leveraged against. Are you back going again? Is that it? Okay. As you'll see there, that we're just burning cash down there. And what that is that's how many vehicles is that? That's 9 vehicles for the sheriff, and realize the sheriff didn't buy vehicles, was it 2 years running, or last year? So we're catching them up right there. That's 9 vehicles, and then we take them back down to a 6 vehicle per year burn, and their replacement. And then we have ambulance, some ambulance replacement and some trucks for EMS in there.
I have a question for Mary Dean. Are these, are we looking at any kind of fuel efficiency on these vehicles?
The cars that are going to be mowed and maintenance, the cars that are going to work on the road, preferably the Chevrolets have been very, very low maintenance. They've got great rating statewide, and all the sheriff's offices, and, Chevrolet trucks.
Did you answer my question? Okay. I was just curious.
They don't, build something that's out.
And you're going mainly to trucks, is that what you're doing?
Want something that'll run down the bad guys.
Yeah.
Young guys.
Right.
Okay. Let's move on down to Parks and Rec. As you can see here, this is another cash burn. If we don't leverage anything here, if you can see it. Yeah, there we go. As you can see, we're burning cash here. It's about $100,000 a year in improvements, and all it's doing is eating down that fund balance. And naturally, we won't end it. We won't end it with $1,900. So, all right, that's that. Next one is 435 sewer. Now, this one, we can look at this one, but we have not put in the USDA, and it's going to change this one altogether. So really, to be honest with you, we only really need to look at this one, because this is going to change.
But we're healthy now, I mean.
Yeah, we're healthy now, we're good now, and
So
we're starting to get there.
You're gonna build your system with the money. How soon will we be able to get money for lines, to extend our lines?
Well, I mean, we're going to continue to go after grants. We looked at CDBG grant funding for lines. The problem is we tried to qualify a couple of areas, and we couldn't qualify them based on could get there as far as the income level, but we couldn't get there from the enough connections based on the money. You know what I mean? So we're trying to play that game, and we're still looking and trying to do that. But one of the things that we're looking at is we're going to bring to you guys a proposed change in the way that we charge for sewer. That'll actually base it on a purely usage basis. And hopefully out of this, and also in this fund, as we correct some problems, as we run more efficiently, and we have to correct our lift station problems. We've got major lift station problems that we have to correct, and once we correct those and get a good cycle going, we can divert some of that lift station dollars over into new main extensions. But right now, I wouldn't suggest us extending any mains unless it was a big development and we worked with them to extend mains. I wouldn't extending mains of any large degree until we get our lift stations fixed.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
And we don't have the money to right now, but this fund has got a possibility in the future. Now, if we had a water system that was large enough, that could fund exactly what you're talking about. That could fund your new lines, that could fund all that stuff. But the problem is when we selected to have the sewer system and not the water system, and I wasn't around then, and I don't think anybody here was around, that was a bad mistake. They said, why do we want to be in the water business? That's the one they should have been in. So, that's right.
Richard.
But we're making this work. Cleve and Brent have done a great job.
Where do we stand as far as sewer lines in front of, what's our policy right now as far as having people hook up to sewer?
Cleve, correct me if I'm wrong, and Brent, but they have, if a line is in front of your house, or in front of your business, you had what? A year? A year?
We're not enforcing that.
But that's not being enforced. I think that's something now that the economy is returning, we've got to address that, because It's just, this fund has to function, and everybody else is, is paying for it, and everybody needs to contribute to this fund, so.
That's what I was gonna comment on, is your user rates typically, you set those to operate, and it's your access fees that when someone books on you, they pay an access fee, and those go towards future line expansion, and not having anybody hook on it, we're not.
I want to ask a question about the sewer fees. I know, isn't it 2 or 3 months out of the year that whatever the water usage of those 2 or 3 months, that sets the sewer for the rest of the year?
Which is backwards.
Yeah. And the reason I was asking, there's some people, so if someone wants to really conserve their water, they're still going to be paying the same sewer, right?
But if they cut their water off during those 3 months, all they do is pay a base rate. Then they can use all the water they want. But also, that's the reason that your rate now is so high, because all you're doing is you're compensating for not picking up the usage. So then all your folks down in
Is there any way to do it?
Oconee Bay, they're not there all the time. They're pumping all the usage in there, and everybody else, the residents here are paying for that all year long. So you've artificially inflated it up trying to get back to the revenue, because that's the way you set that. What needs to happen, it needs to be like everybody else does, base it on actual usage, on a per 1,000 gallon a day usage, lower our rate, we can then lower our rate down, but then everybody pays as you go. And then they can get an irrigation meter. If they want to irrigate that much, they can get an irrigation meter. Or just, they get billed for it. But that way, we're actually, it works better, and we're actually then we can say our rate makes sense. Right now, our rate is very high, but the reason it's high is we're compensating because of the way we bill. And everybody's paying more, and everybody thinks they're paying less because, the way we're calculating, but you're not. We need to get it back correct so that when we make an adjustment, we can make an adjustment. If we raise it or lower it in the future, we'll know what the cause and effect will be, and then it's accurate, and then it's a true raise. But right now, all we've done is to compensate for the way that we calculate it. So it made everybody happy, but it doesn't, it's false.
How much trouble is it to change that?
It's just a matter of us bringing it to you. And we're in the process of bringing a whole scale redo of our sewer system and the billings.
So it
What
will
you
be
think of
billed,
wetlands is big.
so it will be billed on usage, not on the 3 months.
That's right, that's right.
Don't do me any favors.
So, but I don't think this would increase anybody's at all. It would, that's what I'm saying, we would lower the rate down to where it was actual, where everybody contributed to the cause. Then our water fund, moving on to our water fund, which is our 100 customer water system.
We lost services over here.
As you'll see, we're a little over, we actually got a surplus fund balance here.
If you turn to page 262, you can follow along with that.
Yeah. As you'll see, this fund balance policy has it average about $13,000, and we're right now in unrestricted fund balance beginning each year. We're in a 23, 41, 59, 77, and the out years in 96 we'll actually have money that we can, more than likely, if that stays like that, we'll do a transfer out and transfer that either to the general fund or the sewer fund for line extensions, etc.
So our system's averaging a loss every year of 6,700.
But realize the fund balance is doing pretty good. But this fund
balance
is
still above what it's supposed to be.
That's right.
So it's kind of like drawing down the fees with the building
That's right.
department.
Exactly. Yes, sir. All right, let's go to 440, which is our solid waste fund, which should be y'all's next page, if I'm not mistaken. All right. you'll see there, and I'm making sure we got the same copies here. We've got a fund balance policy of $500,000, $500,000 to $600,000, and as you can see, we're building this fund up. It's increasing ever so slightly every year, but it is increasing. We're $152,000 out in 5 years. So we're within striking range there, but it's...
Where are we now?
We're at, right now, we're gonna end the year at about
On
20...
on what page?
Oh,
63.
263, sorry.
So it's $500,000 below fund.
So as you can see, and this fund, realize, will get better and better once we pay off the loan for the capping of the landfill. This fund will really improve itself even more.
This is the fund where just a couple of years ago, you were having to send $200,000, $300,000 a year from the general fund to subsidize it.
We've turned it around.
Got ourselves off that, so it
Yeah.
looks bad, but it is much better than...
When will we have paid for the capping of that?
We don't have that projected here. That's a 10-year loan? So,
Haven't decided on it.
well, this assumes a 10-year loan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this assumes a 10-year loan, so it would be in 23, 24.
That can still change.
Yeah.
Depending on what the rates are and what kind of deals we get.
Yeah.
We can make it a 20-year if that's what we
Yeah.
decide to do.
So we just assumed a 10-year payback, trying to go ahead and get it over with and done. All right, that's your fund balances on those funds. So as you can see, we're sitting pretty good all in all together. But we've really tried to, as I mentioned earlier, we're really trying to make every fund stand on its own.
What happens if we have a hurricane? What do we do in the case of a hurricane? How do
Pool all the cash together and hope for the best.
how do we pay for it? So we're sort of like, we don't have a hurricane.
Well, one of the things that we're going to be bringing back to you guys, and I know this is I hate to say this, but I'm going to. One of the things that we're concerned with is the lack of payment that we're getting from FEMA and how long it takes, and then them not wanting to cover it. We want to continue to build our reserves up, but what we want to do is we've gotten an offer from Ameris Bank to they've offered us a $2 million line of credit. We won't use that line of credit. We've set it up to where it's on an emergency basis, such as a storm, etc., to where we set a threshold where if we cross in expenditures of, if the storm we project is going to be over, and I'm using this number, $750,000, we'll say, okay, if it's a big storm, we're going to start using our credit line so that we can, as we get FEMA back, we can pay that credit line so we don't destroy our reserves, so we can continue. Because the problem is if we get hit really bad, you can't just use all your reserves down and then go try to get a credit line. You got to have that credit line to try to run so that you can continue to pay your employees. Because at the burn that we would be going through, we would be in a couple of months, we wouldn't have employees.
I think that's a reasonable.
Yeah, and it's something that, it wouldn't be used, we set up, here's how we're gonna use it, but it's just a safeguard. It's a safeguard for us. And, like I say, it wouldn't charge us anything to help to sit there. It's not gonna cost us anything on our balance sheet, and so.
And our plan is to bring that to you on, I think, maybe the first meeting in September, just have that agenda item before you. We just switched over our banks, operating accounts to Ameris Bank, and so Robert Weiss over there agreed to waive all fees in setting up. There will be no cost in setting up that line of credit
Where did we go from to?
from Capital City.
Went from Capital City to Ameris.
And
Yep,
there will only be a cost incurred if we, of course,
Use.
get that line of credit.
and we don't wanna do it, but seeing the landscape of what we're doing and trying to be abundantly cautious and say, we don't wanna get into a mess. We'd rather go ahead and plan for it, and especially with it sitting out there with no fees, we can sit on that, we can sit it, and if we get an emergency situation, we can use that as our line of credit, and then as FEMA's reimbursing us, we pay that line of credit off. or whatever the emergency, whatever that emergency
To
is.
just give you some comparison with the flooding that occurred last year, that was $500,000 hit to the general fund. It took, how long did y'all fight?
Almost a year. Taking almost.
Took a year, and we still haven't got the final payment, I think, right?
Maybe a little bit.
A little bit left, but
You know, if we get hit with a storm that costs us $3 or $4 million, we would seriously have a problem paying our employees.
yeah,
So-
you go through your fund balance, you spend a year fighting with them, getting it back, and you don't have money to make payroll.
That's right.
You don't wanna do that.
No. So it's a physically sound thing to do, even though it doesn't sound, it is a physically sound thing to have.
On the water, I wanted to ask a question about the water. Do we have a base rate that we charge them?
On
Or is
water?
it, on the water, or is it just a strict, I mean, what is our base rate on the water?
Our little water system?
For the 100, what is the base rate?
What is that base rate?
Base rate is $15
Yes,
Hang on there.
that's what I was just figuring out. You know, 'cause I mean, I was just looking at that, you know, every year, even though we got a pretty good fund balance, every year it's pretty much consistent of around $6,700, even projected all the way to 18, like 6983. You know, and I was just wondering what the base rate was, because if you got 100 customers and it comes out to be in that they're just to break even, it would take another $5.80 a month.
And I believe those calculations take into account the recent increase that was made there, right? So, I mean, all that does is offset the CPI cost.
Okay.
That's why you see that consistency.
So anyway, that's where we are. Y'all got any further questions?
These right here.
Oh, hold on. Greg's got a few things to go over. Hold on.
You're gonna give us a summary of all the fund balances.
I can still do that, yes, I'll do that.
You don't mind, that'd be helpful.
So can I go back to that water issue for a second? I know it's a minor issue that Commissioner Harden brought up. So we have a base rate of $15. How does that compare to the other water systems?
And that you ran those numbers, our $15 base rate, how does that compare to the other water systems? That puts us in,
That's
where does that
about
put-
the,
where to put it?
It puts it fair.
that's about the same as what Sop Choppies is.
Okay,
Lower.
okay.
The only,
For a long time, the county was compensating and helping them pay for the water, and it makes it much closer to them paying.
Okay.
right, I was just wondering. You know, that's pretty comparable, that's almost identical to what the Sop Choppy rate is outside
The
the
base pay is a little bit higher, base rate is, I think, $19 for in the city limits, maybe 21 for outside the city limits, and then, it goes up there.
Thank you.
As we mentioned before, there's a couple changes that we're now aware of that are not in your documents and not on any of the spreadsheets that we've been looking at. The administration and Debbie sent us this week, CHP is going to offer a fourth tier rate, a fourth rate. We have a single policy, an employee plus spouse, or employee plus one, and then employee plus family. And so Debbie has gotten with the broker, and they've worked out a fourth option with CHP, and it's now going to be employee plus children, one spouse plus however many children. And surprisingly, the rate for that is going to come back in such that any of our employees that move off of the employee plus family, which is what you have to have if you have more than one child, there's going to be almost a $500 a month savings just to the county.
Per employee.
Per employee, per month. So you're looking at almost $6,000 a year savings. Now, how many of our employee plus families are going to move over to it? We don't know yet.
Well, I mean,
Open
that's where a
enrollment's
single
in
mom
August.
now has to pay, or single dad has to pay with a family plan. They can come off of that. We've got a few single moms. Also, if you've got your husband or wife works for a company that he can get cheap insurance just single, then the family, they can come off of that, cover the family, and they can still do the thing. So it gives, and it makes it cheaper for us, but it gives the employee a good benefit that's going to affect just a few employees, but it also makes it brings our healthcare costs down.
It saves the employee $150 a month.
Right.
So it saves on both sides. Now, that will obviously be extended to all the constitutionals as well. Mary, do y'all have the same, are y'all gonna have the same 4-tier rate?
Yeah, because we rolled all together. We rolled all that together.
So it needs to be something that we need to try to promote, obviously, for those that can use that policy to move towards that. That's a piece of good news that will, all I have is what, they gave me on what the current year calculation is gonna be. I don't know, I didn't compare that to the prior. Is Debbie here?
No, she's not. She's
Brandy, do you know if they absorbed all of it or if they're
Yes,
shared?
The employee portion will not change what they
Okay.
pay, except for the ones that are decreased for the new tier.
Okay. Let's see.
that's the,
This is the sheriff's annex. We've got the quotes in on it, and it looks like the quotes are coming in a little cheaper than what we anticipated, and I don't know if it'll be eaten up with change orders or that kind of thing, but right now it looks like we're gonna have a little bit left over in, is that up 1 cent facilities? So that's about, right now it looks like about $85,000
maybe.
under budget, under what we submitted for so hopefully that'll remain that way. Let's see. I won't highlight this too much. This has to do with your 2 911 grants. Those will go in the budget. You'll have 2 more grants go in the Fund 190, the 911 budget. Previously, we were talking about the savings that we've found in the general fund with the fuel contamination estimates going down. And then suddenly, of course, then the sheriff's office called and said, you know, they've got the roofing issue. That estimate is $247,000. And so we've only got a couple options on where to spend that money from. One of them is 1 cent sales tax. If you do that, then we have to nix some other project, or we can just use the general fund reserve that we just sort of found. And so that's the tentative plan right now, is just to pay for it out of the general fund.
What we had done is last year we parked, knowing this was coming up, we parked $600,000 in reserves. Out of we dedicated it to the fund cleanup, to the cleanup. Now the cleanup has come in at half that. So what we were going to do, since we already parked that and assigned that, we're just going to use that for the sheriff's department.
Now, that 200 and something for the sheriff's, you're talking about for his roof maybe.
Yeah.
But I do understand that that can be done for 10 if you use a different kind of roof.
No idea. So you,
And all that, this is a spray,
quotes,
this is a
okay.
spray film.
Is it 2 or is it 10? Some way I...
10 what?
It would cost 10 grand to do that?
No.
Was I wrong?
No, no, no.
247.
Okay, 200 and
Yeah.
something, okay. I
A
was-
new roof is $1 million.
Yeah.
Plus.
The current estimate that we were saying was 247, so 247.
And I went and looked at it, and it is leaking like a sieve. And we gotta do something, because we got guys in the kitchen standing there and water's dripping on them.
Well, hopefully we can get away from that sort of stuff. That's just awful when you absolutely, when you got a leak, you gotta fix it. Just can't, even if you have to borrow the money, you gotta fix it.
Well, and that's a maintenance issue, so.
Those are the other changes that, you will see coming in the next iteration of the budget. And so if I can turn that into a discussion very quickly on your budget calendar, the remaining key dates, that we need to bring your attention to. August 16th, we have to submit our preliminary trim notice to Wakulla News. So that means that any possible changes that we make between now and that advertisement, I need those changes by August 14th, so that we'll have the 15th to incorporate those in those to the Wakulla News.
Which is Wednesday of next week.
Correct.
So we're supposed to be discussing any items that we may want to address in this budget.
That's correct.
Now,
That's correct.
I wanted to, just for my own information, like, the water, y'all said our base rate was like $14 a month? Is that what,
15.
15.
$15 a month? Okay, I was just wondering. And you said Sop Choppies, if I remember, outside of settlements was 21. That'd be,
Y'all want to hear from our constitutionals? We've got the property appraiser and Cheryl, who's comes under budget Cheryl, and Buddy Wells,
Outlaw Buddy Wells.
the outlaw Buddy Wells.
I'm good, unless
Y'all
they
good?
have something to
Okay.
add.
Okay.
well, so do we have anything that we want to address within the budget? I guess what you're saying is now's the time to do it.
Yes.
So, now, we still have to finalize the budget, so it can still change from the trim notice to the final budget.
That's right.
Let me get the high points here. The preliminary trim notice in Wakulla News is sent to them on August 16th. Right? That is so that the citizens get the picture of what will happen at the first preliminary hearing on 9/3, I believe. All right, and so on 9/3, you will have your first public hearing on the budget, your tentative budget hearing.
Okay.
All right, then on, what date is that? The 20th, 16th is your final hearing, in which there will be a second advertisement in the news. So, we need to make some decisions tonight. If there's anything that you want changed in what's going to be presented Wakulla News, besides what changes we've gone over here. And then you'll have another opportunity on your your first public hearing to make more changes subsequent to those. Or you don't need to make any now, and you can make them all in that public hearing.
I just have a question for Donnie. How about your revenue? How about your taxes coming in? Where do you see that? 3.7, and y'all have factored that into your,
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say that would be the high side. You gotta be within our cost. We have, and all that.
so if it comes in less than that, we got more money.
You have a little extra money. Last year, that's what happened. We had a little extra money.
How much did we pick up last year?
I can't
Do you know?
remember. It wasn't a ton, but it was some.
Okay.
the reason I was asking about the water, I mean, I'm not advocating increasing rates by any means, but just crunching the numbers, you know, doing it at $15 right now as we got it, that's, you know, we're showing like this year, averaging a net loss 67.10, and then next year 67.78, right on up to projecting 18.19 of an average loss of 69.83. We're crunching the numbers though, that if we was to match what Sop Choppies is at $21, just, I'm not advocating doing that, but if we went from $15 to $21, that would be an additional $7,200 this year, and we would be at the break-even point. So,
Remember though, we did increase the rates already, just
Right.
a few months ago.
And we need to see how those pan themselves
but
out.
that's the break-even point according to.
One of the things I would make sure y'all understand about this budget only has increases for about 6 employees, and those are our lower tier employees. We have our majority of our employees here, well, all our employees, haven't had a raise since 2009. And the budget, our 5-year plan, builds in a 2% raise year over year for our employees. So we're gonna have to do that, or we're gonna start losing some quality staff. And we're not there yet, but we could be close. We got to start taking care of our people. And I think this 5-year plan shows that we can do that. It's just, we got to continue to operate very, very conservatively.
You know, I would suggest that we go back and look at some of the issues that are not popular and that maybe people, maybe some of the commissioners, if we want to look at, when I brought them up the first time. One is, when we have monies that possibly we can cut back on or go after, sheriff's thing, if there was an error made there on advice to that sheriff's office in distributing that, there should be an errors and omission policy on whoever the attorney was that gave that advice. And I think that we should at least look into that, get an the Attorney General opinion on this. Like I brought up before, it cost us nothing to get that opinion. And if that opinion is that that this applied to the sheriff's office, that statute, then I think we have responsibility to go after that money through an errors and omission. It's $100,000 or thereabouts. That's one issue. There's the issue of the senior center. It's a wonderful institution. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. I think we've contributed over $750,000 in taxpayer monies to that senior center, during which time, my understanding is that the prior director was making $100,000 or better. I find something wrong with that equation, and I think it's time that we should look at how much money we're spending of taxpayer money donating to that senior center, especially with that past
56
history.
this year, 56,000, I think, this year.
No, I think it's something like 70.
That's all together, I think it is.
68, 69,000.
And there's two different pots of that. There's a transportation pot, and then there's another pot. So, even if it's something small and starting throttling back, it means that it's something more that we can start taking care of our employees the way we're supposed to and give them those raises that they deserve. I'm just asking you to look at some of those things.
This year on the senior citizen, one thing, on the federal level, under the Meals on Wheels program, at the federal level, the senior center got cut, the money they're getting from there, and I know the money that we're paying is one thing that's helping prop up that program, which does help a tremendous amount of people. And then whenever I think about the senior citizens, I think about that aspect of it. Because they were cut very big time. I mean, from their federal money, they were cut the Meals on Wheels program, and I see the money that we're paying in. I look at this as the same as I would the COPS program. I look at this as an investment into our community, and we may not see it in actual dollars, but there is a return of investment back to our community to far beyond that, I believe.
And I totally agree with you, but I think our principal responsibility is to the county and its taxpayers. And that's our fiduciary responsibility. And if we're not taking care of our employees' property and they start leaving us because they can make X dollars more someplace else that's significantly different, I think we're making some bad decisions there.
You've got 800 meals a week being delivered at the senior center, and they're being delivered by drivers who are paying for their own gas, using their own automobile. So that's a bare budget. That's a bare budget. The senior center, just the Christmas in July, they raised $23,000 on that Christmas in July. So they work very hard over there, and I'm not going to touch 800 meals a week.
How do you explain a $100,000 salary for the CEO of a senior center when you say those volunteers are working very hard, citizens are donating out of their own pockets very hard? How do you justify us taking taxpayer dollars and having the director there make over $100,000 a year? In the past, I have a problem with that.
The past is yesterday. We're not talking about the past, we're talking about today. Yesterday is somebody else's problem somewhere else. I'm not involved in that, but I am involved in where we are today.
Do we know for sure it's 100,000? Is that public record?
Well, that's another thing, how much disclosure do we have from the senior center of their operations? I would like to see that. I would like to see those, for the past 5 years, what their expenditures were, what their revenues were. I would love to see that.
I want
I'd
it.
love the board to request that.
I'm
I
not
want
going
to
to
add
be a part
another
of that.
perspective when you get done.
But are they entitled to give it to us? I mean, they're,
Well, I mean,
they're
it's
a private,
theirs, they can
I mean, are they
refuse,
required?
maybe, or maybe not. I don't know the legality of that. They do receive federal
They're
funding.
a
I know.
private,
Yes, they do. They give it to us, and I just requested it, the other day, and I will give that to you guys. What it is I got their financials and their audited financial statement, and I'll send that to you. The reason it is they're required to give that to us is realize we're the guarantor for a loan, so therefore they're required to give us that information. Now, it doesn't break down people's salary, but it's their,
Can we ask for the director's salary over the last 5 years?
that's a question you'll have to ask her.
We can ask for it. I mean, they may have the right to say no to us, but I think that we deserve to ask that question.
I want to offer another perspective here, all right? Instead of looking at the money say if it's 77,000, instead of looking at 77,000 going to pay someone's salary, I look at that 77,000 going to the part of our population that's struggling more than anybody else. They're living on Social Security. I mean, they can't make it. There's a lot of these citizens that without Meals on Wheels, they wouldn't eat. I mean, they literally would not eat if it wasn't for Meals on Wheels. So that's where I see this 77,000 going. I don't see it, or 77,000 being used to go to pay salary. I see it used to be going to feed 800 people a week and being able to prop up a program that has been kept at the federal level. That's where I directly see this money going. I think this money's a direct investment in our community, and I don't think we can even calculate the return of investment that we are getting back for it. So I fully support paying this money to the senior citizens.
RH took that, we're talking about RH. I don't even like to talk about RH because he took that senior center from a dilapidated building to what it is today, and it's one of the brightest senior centers probably in the state. There's probably not a senior center in the state that provides more services for less money than our senior center.
I've got a couple of other line item questions, specifics that I just don't know what they are. Under general admin flex plan, $125,000.
You have 17 county employees, and I did not add up all your constitutional officer employees, but they participate in this as well. I know the clerk's office has probably 2 or 3 maybe. I know the sheriff's office has, I'll try to get how many titles? 6, 2 for you, okay. You've probably got maybe 40 or more employees that do not get the health insurance plan. And so was it number $3,500?
$2,500. It was $3,500, it's $25 now.
That's what that is for. It's funding the flex plan program.
So they get that in lieu of health insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
At the last meeting, Howard brought up $38,000 for rent on the sheriff's tower. Who do we pay that to, and exactly?
To a tower company.
Or not.
Yep, and I actually sent a letter out today, requesting that we have a conversation about that, because they were supposed to have tried to get other leaseors, or whatever you call it, to come in. I don't think they haven't made any things, so we're going to go into talks with them.
So they built the tower on our property, but that's just an agreed upon price?
Agreed
for us?
upon price, and it was supposed to come down as they get folks in town to the tower. And what would happen in theory, the way it was sold to the county, is after a couple of years, there'd be enough people on there to where the county actually make money off the tower, because it reverts back to making money. But right now, we're still at a burn of $30,000 a year.
And I just reviewed the agreement recently. We pay them $3,000 or a little more than $3,000 a year.
It's 28.
A month,
2,800.
2,800. As soon as one carrier comes on the tower, that gets cut
To 1,800.
1,800. The second carrier comes on, that's 0 now.
And then,
0.
and then they owe you money.
In reverse, we get a portion of the revenues they generate off of those 2 carriers.
And under the ground lease, they have to pay you $400 a month.
So waiting for 2 carriers to go on that tower.
That sounds pretty good, but we approved a tower the other night that's gonna be 300 foot tall. If I were putting up my station, I'd put down the bigger tower.
Well, ours is, we got a 400-foot tower,
Oh, okay, well then we have yeah, okay, good enough. I didn't know how tall it was.
350-foot tower, I'm sorry.
The problem is that we can't force a carrier to go on.
I understand that.
Theirs.
Well, that was one of the things that sounded good, but it, you know how that
Maybe
is.
Cheryl has something she wants to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see those things.
Just out of curiosity, I want to ask, how much are we budgeting for the code enforcement board for this upcoming year? If I remember right, it's close to 186,000, isn't it?
Hold on. Code enforcement, no, sir, is, total budget is 112.
112? All right.
Buddy's leaving now, we can go after his.
What about, we have an entry for sanity inquisitions, $55,000.
That's your state government hard at work. That's state mandate.
What is that?
You touch it just
What is
for
that for?
sanity inquisition.
Find out if somebody's crazy, we ought to be broke.
Yep, that's right. That's about as good as I can tell you. All I know is they send a bill and we have to pay it.
Okay.
As with a lot of things.
I stand corrected on the code board, I was thinking it was 180, but I understand about the 100.
And under parks, we've got contracted services of $62,000.
Right.
What is that?
That's what we pay the sheriff's department to mow all the grass, for the parks department, for the parks, and, that's the contract that we have with the sheriff's department. That supplies us a truck and a trailer and a person to manage, the inmates. Now, one of the things that we're doing is we will be going out to bid to that just to check up and see what, on the private side, what we could get that done for, just to check and see where we're not planning on getting away from the program, but I constantly check and everything. There are, no sacred cows.
And then under, I know it's a secured fund, but under rent assistance, we've got a $98,000 increase. What?
Under what?
Rent assistance. What are, rent assistance, page 131,
That would be revolving grant.
under housing.
Housing grant.
Yeah, that's your housing grant.
But what's making us increase that by 98,000 in 1 year?
I would have to talk with Ezra about that, and it's probably just, well, the grant is going from 941 to 1,028,000, and so you have additional grant monies.
You probably got some carryover as well.
They dictate how much you can spend on administration, how much you can spend on different types of things, and
Because it looks like everything's kind of flat, 2.5%, and that one jumps up 11%. And I just didn't know if there's something that we think we're projecting there's gonna be a lot more people need it.
And see, we also have a fund balance there, and that fund balance is really, it's program dollars that have to be spent, and so it may be the grant agency saying, okay, it's time for you to start spending down some of that fund balance, and I would have to check with Ezra on that.
I think that is the case.
He built that budget there, and since it's restricted grant dollars, I don't really try to do it a whole lot.
Okay. And under road department, there's a $40,000 increase in fuel. Did y'all take Cleve's truck away or something? I mean, that looked like to me about the only department where fuel was going down. I mean, that's good if it is. Just wondered.
Well, also,
He said his trucks are older than you.
well, and also, this is a matter of how they were accounting for it in the past, was they had this huge logarithmic calculation, they pulled all the gas and fuel into there, and then they started taking it out, and so therefore, at the end of the day, what was left over after everybody paid for fuel, that was what fuel that the road department used.
I mean, I'm not complaining, I like the
And so therefore, we're straightening all that out, and we're finding out, we're getting all that straight, so.
Net bills each county department that uses fuel, and so that's the net cost to the county. I don't want you to think that that's all the fuel we use, that's just the fuel
That's right.
applied to the road department. So, but yeah, there was some cleanup on that.
We're cleaning that up and getting it to where we can better predict what we got, because the way it was before, it was just a hodgepodge mess, and we wasn't sure whether we were getting screwed or whether we were doing good, so.
And could you do just a quick rundown of the 2-cent gas tax, the Fund 160, and, you know,
What page are you on now for now?
page 165?
Okay, Greg, you get that one.
As I said before, you have 10 pennies. The statutes lay out what each of those pennies can be spent on. For example, the 9th cent gas tax is supposed to be spent on maintenance only. And it's about $100,000, and so we spend that on maintenance. The 2-cent gas tax is supposed to be spent on capital equipment. And so we use the 2 cent to either purchase vehicles or to pay back loans on previously bought vehicles. And so you're going to get, we're estimating $207,000 in 2-cent gas tax revenue. We will spend $155,000 on an arm mower, whatever that is. It's important. We have a loan payment on a dump truck. It's a 4-year lease with a buyback option at the end, if I remember correctly. No buyback option on that one? I'm gonna buy it outright in the 4th year. That's the $38,000. And then, let's see. We're to about, notice that the net loss is $43,000. We'll just pull that in from the cash reserves, and although you're looking at no cash forward and you're up on the screen here, your document should show that you have cash forward and a reserve built in case something happens and we need to buy something else. We've got a little buffer built into that fund in case something happens.
What about the interfund transfer of $58,000?
Where does that go? That is probably going up top. Yeah, that's going up top to your operating to cover that capital outlay equipment of $59,000, which is a skid steer and bypass pump. So there's some equipment purchases up in the operating fund, and I could probably clean that up by just moving the equipment down to 2 cent, but that's what that's for.
Okay. Probably my last question, and it's small numbers, I guess, but what are we gonna do with the Big Bend Maritime? I mean, that's a
You're in
little
front of my
small drain.
That's budget, really, all it does is that's just to pay the electric bill and maintain a little bit of it, but this budget has no money in it for a ultimate, and that is, you're right, that's a big problem that we gotta figure out what to do, and right now, we don't have any funds available to do anything with it, to be honest with you.
That's on.
I think what you'll see in this whole budget is the good news where we're at as a county. The good news is we're getting healthier, and we're about there. We got some work to do, and we got to watch it. And also what we're getting healthier at is not only from a financial basis, but we're getting healthier we're replacing our equipment, we're upgrading, so we're not in danger of everything failing, if you know what I mean. We're starting to do the replacement as we should be, replacing equipment, running it as we should, we hope to get to where we could start making some sense, like, you know, if at some point in time, I want to have some visioning to where we actually have some type of visioning committee that we talk about what is the ultimately, where do we need to move where do we need to do with our county offices? Because where we're at right now is the most inefficient thing that you could ever want to be in. And it's old buildings, and eventually they're going to have to be pushed down by it. But in the future, where would, if we were to build one, what would that savings be? But then, where would you do it? So we need to start thinking about vision, you know, 20 years out, what do we think we are to be? But I think the good thing that this does is it gives us a good idea of today's budget, but also where we're going to be set in 5 years from now, which is huge. I mean, we need to know that. We need to know where we're going to be standing. And this gives you a pretty darn good idea. Yeah, it can go up and down a little bit. It doesn't factor in everything that could happen with the economy, but we don't have dramatic increases or decreases in the assumptions that are crazy. So it's going to be pretty much where we are, and that way we can, you know, if you want to make an adjustment, what we can do is we can change the spreadsheet and say, okay, let's get rid of this. What does that affect? And we can show you what that effect is. So I think this is a good, intelligent budget. It's a good, intelligent 5-year plan. We still got some building to go, but we're getting there both from a financial standpoint as well as from a facility and infrastructure standpoint.
And I want to say that, you know, my experience in looking at these budgets, this year is the clearest and easiest budget to look at. And I really want to thank Administrator and Greg James and Brandy and all others that had to do it. This is really a giant step forward.
I want to thank each department that's here, the property appraiser and tax collector and the extension and library, each and every department, and everything that each and every department does is very important to our county running, and each of y'all, you know, have just doing an awesome job, and each of you are reflective of departments, and I just want y'all to know that you're very commendable, and thank you for everything that each of you do.
You including Buddy in that also?
Oh, Buddy, yeah.
Oh.
I'm with everybody. Outlaw Buddy Wells, he's in there.
But Buddy made the national news today.
Did he really? Did he really?
Yep.
I join everybody in saying that basically, the best thing I can see is we probably have the best county staff all the way around, of anywhere. I want you to keep an eye, David, on the fire department though in Cleve. Keep an eye on those two.
That's a big job.
Especially Cleve.
Back to the Big Bend Maritime Center. It's not an expensive budget, but it could get ugly quick. That was bought with, what's the program, the state program?
Some recreation grant. I don't know.
Some grant where, I mean, it is forever yours.
Florida Forever.
The Florida Forever, whatever that is.
Tied to DEP.
For a time period of at least 50 years, I think.
You're saying
And when they say
property is
Florida Forever, they mean it forever.
Couldn't sell it if we
It
wanted
is
to.
yours. And you have 2 buildings on there that are closed, shut down, and you know what happens to buildings that are closed and shut down. And so a $10,000 budget's gonna turn into
You can't move
a
the,
couple $100,000 easily.
you can't move the TDC across over there in the Welcome Center?
What you gonna do with Welcome?
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of ideas.
There's an idea. There's an idea. of
We don't-
it all into a park, you know, Woolly Park, and tearing one of those houses down, or both of them, and turning it into a park. I mean, there's a lot of ideas. What the
Firefighter training, maybe?
firefighter training on the by the bay. Problem is, you'd have a sand net problem most of the year. But
Talking about burn it down and let them go put it.
there you go. But there's a lot of ideas. But the problem is there's just not going to. In reality, is this. At the way that it was, the bill of goods that was sold to the county again, like the tower and this, is there was no way that what they wanted to do was going to work. It just wasn't, the money was not going to be there. And if you think you're going to get that big facility and do all things by having a Mighty Mullet Festival, there ain't no way.
It was sold on a best-case scenario.
I mean, that's what you call whipping a spreadsheet to make it work. And that's the worst thing in the world to do in business or in anything you're doing. And so I think it was a great idea. It feels good, but at the end of the day, we don't have the money to do anything.
TDC don't want it suddenly.
TDC all of a sudden don't want it, wow. I don't blame you.
So what are our options? What are our options?
Right
How do
now, we have
protect
no
ourselves?
options, we have no money, and we can't sell it. All we can do is sit on it right now, until we can figure something out.
Look for grants.
Yeah, the problem is do you continually put, and what do you get a grant for? We get a grant for cutting, you know what I mean, what are we gonna get a grant for, what are we gonna do? And
All your grants are construction or capital related, and so you still gotta operate it, and there's no operating revenue coming from it, so.
Can't we rent it out to other entities?
Yeah, that was my question, can we rent it?
Well, the grant says it has to be a maritime museum. The first thing you need to do is get with DEP and see if you can broaden that or
Well,
change it or.
the problem when renting it, realize it was a residential building, I mean, you gotta put elevators in it. You gotta double down, spend more money and put residential elevators in all of it, or commercial elevators. So, I mean, you know what I mean, it's just that one, you're right, that makes sense, but then on the other side, well, rent it. But every way you move, it's like you're hitting the wall.
What is our obligation on the Welcome Center? As far as, you know, our authority to do anything with it?
I honestly, I don't know, I don't know.
That's
that.
before my time as well, but my understanding is it was purchased with a similar type grant, and Cherie, there are several reports that we have to turn in annually, one on the Welcome Center, and in fact, the Blue Crab Festival was built around sort of being the operation side of that, and so I don't know where, that's a whole nother discussion, but you got the several festivals that were built towards assisting in these things, but you're in the same situation. I don't think you could sell it.
That's a great restaurant.
That's what it started as.
I believe the county has 4 pieces of property that fall into that category, and we've listed 2 of them. The other 2, one's landlocked somewhere in the middle of refuge or something like that, and we don't do anything with it. But
That's purified bags. Yeah.
And that's just raw land?
Yeah.
I think so.
All land, yeah. Anyway, don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Go home.
We can conclude the workshop.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.